Hello, everybody. I'm calling the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Welcome to regular meeting number 1406 of the Wachusett Regional School Committee. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on Holden TV channel 194 and holdentv.com. The first item on the agenda tonight is public hearing. We have a couple people signed up for public hearing. So I am going to start by calling Katie Antonarella from Holden. Please come up to the podium.
Hi, I'm Katie Antonarella from Malden Street in Holden. My daughter Olivia will be directly impacted by the move at ECC. There are many things our kids would miss out on with this move, but to me, one of the most important things is a sense of community and inclusion that we've built with every school pizza party, dance party, and trunk or treat that we've had. There's no way that can continue with parents and children divided between 3 different schools. It wouldn't be fair to expect a teacher that volunteers their time to undertake that task either. Many people move to this area because they want to be in the school district. They hear that it's a good school district until you find out that your child is not neurotypical, and then you hear differently. You have to fight for everything. The children and the parents that need the most help have to scratch and claw for what should be given freely. I'd like to thank you for making me more aware of what my child and our children deserve in terms of their education. I was blissful in my ignorance until now. Now I will learn everything I can to be sure our children are being treated fairly. My daughter running around Houghton cafeteria or even eating in there a year earlier than expected does not excite me. She'll have plenty of time to do that in her academic career. An extra year in a cafeteria is not the flex you think it is. I'd like my daughter to be in a smaller, more inclusive environment and have time to work on these social skills before moving to a bigger school. As it stands, there's not enough teachers and paras in these schools to fulfill the IEPs that the children have. Splitting them up into 3 different schools is certainly not the answer. The staff at this school are amazing and work hard to improve our children's lives every day. They deserve better than this. They deserve better than a half-planned move. If this change must happen, it needs to be better thought out and planned significantly better. The playground at Houghton is not safe for children under 5, even more so neurodivergent children. I brought my daughter to that playground once. It is not safe. I could tell immediately that she would fall. The height is way too high. I urge you to take a step back and take this move more slowly. Plan it out with the help of the school committee and CPAC the way that it should be done. If we all care about the children and their safety, then there really is no other answer. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, I'd like to recognize Margaret Murphy from Holden.
Thank you. That should say Rutland. If I wrote Holden, then that's really bad and I'm exhausted. So I apologize. So thank you. I just want to say thank you to the school committee for allowing, public comment. Thank you for the motion on April 8th and, requesting a response to the questions. Thank you to the leadership team for crafting a response to those. I know that you are busy and that takes time. I just wanted to say, and I thought about this once I read them on Saturday and reflected and reflected and reflected up until the second I sat over there, so I actually have nothing prepared to say. The responses, while they're appreciated, just weren't satisfying, and I feel like it was an exercise that was conducted as opposed to a true response to questions many of us are asking. I could cite several examples. I don't think it's necessary to go back and forth. As a committee, I would certainly urge you to dig deeper, to have higher expectations for a response. I think citing a coordinated program review from 2019, I actually can't really comment on that. I mean, I think you're in a mid-cycle review right now. There eventually would be more current data. I think that the response about the budget, as a parent, as an educator, and as a taxpayer, I don't find that satisfying. I think that it's not just we do transport because we're required to. I think there are financial implications. I think that, even a response could have said, yes, we are relocating one classroom. However, we are adding two. The cost of this is this. I just do not feel that they were answered in totality, and so I would just ask, and I would hope that anytime a plan like this is in the works, and also I guess the biggest thing is there's still not clarity in the plan, and that's the biggest thing. We talk about clarity in leadership, we talk about clarity with teachers, and it's not clear. It is still so not clear to me how the inclusion opportunities are being increased. It's just not spelled out. I think I'm kind of intelligent, I'm not a genius, that's for sure, but I just hope, and I compel the committee to please expect and ask for additional information. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I believe that was all the people that signed up for a public hearing. Did anybody else sign up that I missed? Come forward.
Good evening, Michelle Graywall in Holden. I'm accompanied by my son, Karan, who is a third grade student, as well as his older sister, Jasmine, who's a fourth grade student at Davis Hill. So I came here to speak to the motion regarding the request to review a comprehensive review of the special education programs across the district. That has been a pretty big topic at our last meetings. And I did a little bit I was doing some additional research, and I started to, really look at what was being proposed. And so in addition to the parents and guardians, the different stakeholder groups, I would ask for 2 points to consider, which would be extracurricular activities. And this would make Dr. Lataz and Ms. Michelle Grisey happy, because they add to our social emotional program and extracurriculars, as well as help to supplement from a budget perspective. So always wanting to think of those two things. Specifically, my children have attended a before-school physical fitness program that was at Davis Hill. It's a great program. It's very cost-effective as a parent, and I know that it has been a very hot topic as parents consider before and after-school childcare costs. I think that I heard that it's about $900 for before and after care school per month for 2 children, which is often what families have. And this is a very big expense. And while I know that extracurricular programs don't necessarily take the place of, and I fully understand that they are run differently from a compliance and regulatory perspective than like a before and after school program, I would just encourage the administration and the school committee to look more closely at finding a win-win with not only offering additional extracurricular programs, which could also help to supplement school budgets. I do know for a fact, I did volunteer at the program, and both of my children's teachers had great positive things to say about it when they would go into school, and they really had, they really enjoyed doing the fitness club. But as I understand, the way the program has been restructured may not be as advantageous for teachers, and really considering the years of experience, the time planning, and all the expertise and resources that they need in order to plan a great program. I don't know anyone who works harder than teachers, and they're always doing extra planning, and so I think it's important that they're compensated and that's taken into account, not just the time they're there. And so again, I know Dr. Lataz has done a number of great webinars and information sessions for parents on extracurriculars, and I really would like to take this opportunity, as we're considering all the different special education programs, allowing extracurriculars to bridge that inclusion, because inclusion is felt in the moments between you and your peers, right? It's not always in that extra verbal exchange, it's when you're connecting, with your peers. And I'd like to call out 2 really great volunteer run programs, the chess program at the Houghton Elementary School. It's run by the PTO, and then also also Lindsay Lucasen has been running a STEM program at the Naquag and Mayo schools, a Lego program with Stephanie Letts, and collaboration with the principals there. So thank you very much to Principal Casper and the principal at Naquag. The name is escaping me, but thank you for those collaborations. So those are parent-run, but again, if there are additional opportunities for teachers to offer these after school, it could help to benefit parents from a childcare standpoint, bridging peer relationships, and then also bringing in some vital funds to our district and achieving our social emotional goals. So really, it could be a win-win. Dr. Riley, I fully appreciate that there are many, insurance and costs and operational costs to doing something like this, and I know that it has to be well thought out, but I just wanted to reiterate that I see this as a positive and something that could enhance the motion on the table. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's all we had for public hearing tonight, so I'd like to move on. Next, we have a presentation by Wachusett Junior Jordan D'Amelio.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jordan D'Amelio, and I'm a junior here at Wachusett. I played, ever since I was a kid, I loved watching and playing football. I played co-ed flag football until 6th grade. But after that age, there has not been an opportunity for girls to play football until last year. In the spring of 2023, the New England Patriots sponsored a high school girls flag football program in Massachusetts. Since this October, I've been working with the school administration to create a girls flag football team at Wachusett. Unfortunately, Wachusett was unable to recognize us as an official school activity this year, therefore leaving us to resort to private funding, field space, and transportation. Tonight, we are here to ask for recognition as a sanctioned club sport, funding, and transportation for the spring 2025 season from Wachusett High School. This is our team, our coach, Bridget, and they're all here with us today, and our coach is going to speak on our behalf. So let me hand it over to our coach as she outlines the background information on what we are looking to accomplish. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for having us tonight. I was asked to coach, and I was absolutely thrilled. I am a huge football fan. I coached Jordan actually growing up with flag football, and I was in high school 30 years ago. There was never an opportunity like this for me, but I was kind of the kid that always played football with all my guy friends, and now here's this organization that has the opportunity for these girls to play in. So we just wanted to go over what it is and then what we were asking for. So here's a picture of our team from our first game. We played at Air Shirley High School, and we actually beat, for our second game, we broke a record and won 43-6. So these girls were awesome. So it's a good start. So here we go. So girls flag football, right now it is the fastest growing sport globally. The New England Patriots established the first all-girls high school flag football league in Massachusetts in 2023. The first year, which was last year, there were 8 teams in the inaugural year, and now this year, it's the second year, there are 23 teams. So right there, it goes to show how much of a growth it is and how much potential there is to grow. This is sponsored by the NFL and is developing in other countries such as the UK and Germany. It's on the docket to become a sanctioned sport in 2026, so our hope is that some of these girls will play on the first varsity sport in 2 years' time. It will be featured in the Olympics this summer games, so you'll see that coming through. They'll play the same format as we play, which is the 5v5 format. So our progress so far, we recruited this team to play this season. We have developed viable solutions to both the transportation, funding, field space, and coaching concerns of the administration. Out of the 23 teams that are participating this year, we are the only team that is not recognized by their school or given field space or funding this year. The league, although knew that as we had been in discussion with them ahead of time, they did allow us to participate regardless of that this year. So they have been extremely supportive and allowed us to also to have a season regardless of that. And the New England Patriots have been extremely generous in support and really were the reason why we were able to fund it this year. They gave us $2,000 worth of Nike uniforms, which the girls are all wearing tonight. They gave us balls, flags, all the equipment that we could possibly need. They paid for our officials, and they also gave us memorabilia to raffle off so that we could make money for our team. So the girls have that. If you could show it off, we have signed football from, let's see, I forget who they're from.
Matthew Judon.
Matthew Judon. We have a
Dietrich Wise.
Okay, Dietrich Wise. We have a signed helmet from Matthew Judon, I believe, and then we have a signed jersey from Kendrick Bourne. So, and then we also have 2 lower bowl tickets to raffle off to this season for the Patriots. So we kind of started the funding, but we are doing it privately, so that's one of our barriers. So Title IX, if you're not familiar with that, it was established in 1972. It's a civil rights law that bans sexual discrimination against students of public schools that receive federal funding and all educational programs and activities such as athletics. Despite the establishment of Title IX, high school girls still drop out of sports at a 2 times faster rate than boys in Massachusetts. At Wachusett, more boys participate in athletics than girls. There is no female equivalent opportunity to play the sport of football until now. So, you know, with that in mind, this will provide more opportunity in female sport participation. So what are we requesting? We're requesting for next year, since we're already established this year, but for next year, we do want to be recognized as an official Wachusett club sport. It will not be a varsity club until the following year, or varsity sport, but we are looking for that school sanction or recognition and school support. We would like to use the field space next year, and really it's not a lot of field space. We use about 1/4 of the size of the football field, and we would request it for 2 times a week. We could really do it anytime between the hours of 2:30 and 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night. We also are looking to host 1 to 2 home games next season. I think that that is really important to show the girls that we're behind them, and to also bring it to the community so that they can see the vision of what this looks like. We have been practicing at, you know, we've been kind of using field space, and there have been people that have just been walking their dogs, and they've stopped the girls after practice and said, "What are you doing? We have never seen girls play football like you girls are doing. This is awesome, so cool." So we'd like to have that and bring it to Wachusett. We also would like the transportation. We do believe that a lot of bonding does happen, you know, to and from games. So if we could all be together, that would be helpful. And then we would like to have it written into the budget for 2025. How will Wachusett benefit? Well, it provides more opportunities for females to be involved in athletics and in extracurricular. It will create an environment that feels like it's more involved and a part of a community. It will bring schools like Leominster, Fitchburg, Air Shirley, Lowell, Springfield, Lancaster. They're all part of this league to interact with the Wachusett community. It can bring in funding for the Booster Club with ticket sales, concession sales. Also provide more female opportunity to participate in MIAA athletics in the future. And we really just want to have you become a part of history with us. So these are some resources I did send along to the school committee. You know, if you search any kind of articles, you'll see all of that. You can view the New England Patriots High School flag football website, which has all the information on them. We also are we also are being broadcast on Fitchburg Access Television, so you can watch any games there. It's really exciting to see that. And our request is, let's make history together. So we play this Friday night under the lights at Doyle Field in Leominster, and we're playing against the leading teams in our league at 6:45 and 7:30. This is a copy of our schedule, remaining schedule. I also just forwarded like a minute clip of girls playing, which is really cool to see with commentating and everything too. I don't want to take up a ton of your time, so you don't have to watch that unless you want to. Okay.
I also wanted to just touch on real quick how much this really could bring to Wachusett, because I've played sports my whole life. I've played soccer, softball, track, like basically anything you could think of, and there never really has been an interest for spectators in sports, but also like female sports too. And when we had our first game in Air Shirley, that was the most I've ever seen anybody turn out for any high school level female sport, or like any sport that I've been a part of, especially because there's a lot of different towns and high schools that go to these events. Like there was 8 or 9 teams that were playing at once. So I felt like it was really revolutionary, and it could be a really game-changing thing for Wachusett, especially for women's sports at Wachusett.
All right, so thank you.
Okay. Here, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Does anyone from so this is an agenda item, does anyone from the committee have a question? Yep.
Just a very brief question. So are we talking about operation within an NFHS framework?
I'm sorry, say that again?
So would this be within the NFHS framework? National Federation of High Schools.
Natural Federation. So meaning.
Okay, apparently not.
I'm sorry, I don't
Never
know if I have the
That's
answer
okay.
to that.
That's fine. So I guess the answer is no.
So National Federation
High schools.
of High School. So I don't know if you're asking whether it's going to become a sanctioned MIAA sport, but that is what they're working on right now. So they're actually in meetings and have people together. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
But right now it's not.
But right now it's not. So right now it is considered a club sport.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. But in 2026,
I got
it
Jana.
should be a MIAA recognized.
Yep, go ahead, Jana. And then,
Thank you for coming
Sure.
and giving the presentation. I really liked hearing about the new club, and I think it's really exciting to have new things going on at Wachusett. I feel like I need to have a deeper understanding of how sports are working in this district in general, because my understanding is that we don't build it into the budget and that it's all paid through student activity fees. But it seems like those fees aren't covering all the costs of these sports, as well as certain sports don't get sanctioned, where if the kids are paying to play, I don't know what is left to be okayed. And so I guess I just need a deeper overview of how sports are working at our middle schools and high schools, how the funding's working, how they're getting approved in general, because I know, like, we just added unified track this year, which is amazing, and we would love to add more of those. I know girls hockey is looking to form teams. And so I'm just curious how, that is working. I just need more details on that. From a financial and also a how they get approved and why they get approved or why they don't get approved perspective. If that makes sense.
I don't know if we have an answer for that tonight, but we can certainly discuss that.
I meant like.
Yep. I think, Sherry, you had your hand up?
That was next, I think.
Oh, Matt was next?
She asked the question I wanted to ask.
All right, so you're good.
I do appreciate your coming, and I do support your endeavor. You did talk about, I think, field space is always at a premium here, but your flexibility sounds like it works to me. I do question funding for next year, as our budget's already set. So I don't have a concept of how much funding you need. Do you have a concept of that?
Yes, so it would be approximately $1,000 for us to run.
Okay. And would it be your thought that the families are paying sports fees as the same as all the other sports?
So we could, if we were, next year, it could be that way, except that they aren't having, the traditional varsity experience. So that fee is fairly high. I would tell you that for this year, we did ask for a $100 fee per our athletes to participate this year, because we are like renting a van to travel, and there's other expenses that are, part of it, and also just to establish that moving forward. But I know the sports fee is a little high here, so $250, I feel like that might be a little high. I don't know if we could get some, I'm not sure how much like ski club charges or other clubs like that. For unified track, I'm not sure if it's the same. I feel like $250 might be a little steep.
Thank you.
Matt.
I want to thank Bridget and Jordan and the team for coming here. I think we've heard from a number of different teams over the years or interests of organizations. I think back to wrestling, I think to the presentation by the young girls hockey, and this one. This is by far, and it's not a knock on anybody else who's presented, but the furthest that a group has taken something into reality. So I think there's a lot of commending that needs to be done for taking a vision and putting into reality for this year. So I have more of a question for administration. I think our budget's somewhere about 120 million, give or take.
If it gets approved, yeah.
And I think we've heard and asked for $1,000. That seems like small drop in the bucket. I think that we've also heard in the past, and this is for the body, I mean, we've heard for, last meeting, we saw a number of questions around why kids leave this district. And I look at opportunities like this as a driver for not only why people would stay, but why they'd want to continue to be part of it. So it's more of a question through the chair to administration, but do you see anything that would prevent what's being asked for 2025?
So what I'd share is we actually, I know Principal Mike Pratt has met a couple times with Jordan, and I actually spoke to her last week and let her know that we wanted to get together with her in June. And we were going to do some work as an administration, look at the programs in Fitchburg, Leominster, Air Shirley, and see how they got off the ground, how they're supported in those districts. And they were going to do some work in terms of understanding what the true cost would be, what they were asking for. This presentation answers some of those questions. And then the other piece I think we do have to look at, and I'm not sure of, and this is one of the things that we shared with her, is that how Title IX does get incorporated. I'm not sure if it impacts differently if it's a club sport or it's a varsity sport. This is, to Member Brennan's point, I don't have a great understanding, to be honest, about how the athletic department makes decisions about adding sports, the process we go through, and then also decisions in terms of fields and other things. But as I told Jordan when I met with her, yeah, I'd be happy to meet with them and look at, get some information from those other programs that have been approved and how they got approved, and then sitting down with them and looking at some of what their experiences were this year and having a better understanding of what they're hoping from the district next year. But, I agree with everything you said. I think it's pretty cool. They're having a good season. I think one of the things that was shared with me, I don't know if it was like 4 playoff teams that you told me or something that I said, but they're on track to potentially play in the playoffs. So it's awesome. There's certainly no downside to it. I don't, and I wish, but it's one of those things, I don't know the exact procedure the district has to go through. But part of that conversation will have to be with the athletic department. But we can present to the entire committee, about that process. We do have to look at fees and other things, but it's a great idea, you know what I mean? And clearly they've rallied themselves together. I give them a world of credit. And, you know, it's just like Unified Track. I think we want to support as many great endeavors that are happening for our students. It was mentioned earlier tonight, like extracurriculars make a difference in the experience, you know? And so the more diverse our opportunities we can have for our young people, I think we should explore them all.
Just a quick follow-up. Summer tends to be a slower time for school committee operations. It would be great to see this flushed out through the summer before the fall starts.
Sorry, you guys will have to forgive me. The thing with the raffles and donations, was there somewhere specific to do that? Or I'm so sorry, I might have missed that when you mentioned it.
We haven't quite figured that piece out yet, but our thought is we probably are going to have an end of the season banquet, and then maybe do like a silent auction with that. So, you know, that's one thing that when we received it, we were like, this is awesome. You know, we just don't know how we'll go about that, but open to ideas. Also, one thing I would touch upon is that we are set to have playoffs at Gillette Stadium, so if we are in one of those top slots, then we will be playing at Gillette Stadium on June 14th, so.
Okay, thank you. Was there a question from someone online? I thought I heard a ding.
Hi.
Go ahead.
It's me.
And then George.
I appreciate this program. I looked at the slides earlier and was very impressed. I mean, it's great opportunity for our students. It's great visibility for our school. It's great. My concern is similar to Member Brennan's and what the superintendent just said, is that like many things in this district, we have not had a process for funding / monitoring some of our athletic decisions. And so I know that administration's been looking into that. So my concern, it's not a concern, it's a question that I will look forward to hearing the answer to. If nothing else was a factor, I'd say absolutely, this is a fantastic program. It's not about this program itself. It's that I think we need to be very careful that we know what the process is, make it just that some process is established.
Oh, I think we're losing you, Malia.
And being funded, and I think we need to make sure.
The connection just went
You lost me?
Yeah, the connection went really bad, Malia. I'm sorry.
I think
Can you hear me now?
Not very well.
Okay, all right.
All right.
I will,
Let's move on. George, I think you had a question?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to comment. I completely agree with actually Member Brannan. I think it would be nice to have at least a part of one of the future superintendent's reports devoted to the overall process of, you know, funding recognition, so that this nice presentation would be followed up within this systemic framework and not just the one case.
Sherry.
To George's point, appropriate, I'd like to make a motion to ask administration to report back to school committee on the process for club sports, and additionally to survey middle and high school students for interest in this and other sports.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Linda. Any discussion on the motion? Carl.
Just a question, if we would, are there other things that this could apply to that would be good for us to learn about, like other types of extracurriculars? Or is that kind of just an idea out there that we could, benefits or cons to expanding it to just extracurriculars broadly? So if there were a theater club, different things like that. I can see it being together, but it's also kind of its own niche, so just a thought. No strong feelings either way, just throwing it out there.
Okay. Jana?
I just had a question for clarification on the motion. Is it just club sports or just all sports in general? Like,
My point was club sports.
sorry?
My point was club sports, but if someone wants to make an amendment.
I'd like to make an amendment to also include the JV and varsity sports as well.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to amend the motion to include JV and varsity sports in addition to club sports. Any discussion on the amendment?
Scott, can you repeat the motion because I was coming back online when it was being read?
Yes, I'm going to ask Sherry to do it because she has it written down.
Kind of. Motion to ask administration to report back to school committee on the process for club sports and with the amendment possibly of JV and varsity sports, including a survey to middle and high school students on interest.
Okay, any other discussion on the amendment? All right, we'll do a roll call vote on the amendment to add JV and varsity sports.
Member Beardmore?
Beardmore, yes.
Member Gavarden?
Gavarden, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Sin abstain.
Member Kaminsky?
Kaminsky, yes.
Vice Chair Haber?
Haber, yes.
Member Lavoy?
Lavoy, yes.
Member Lorway?
Lorway, yes.
Member Longbelio?
Longueville, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Fool? Member Seaman Garrett?
Seaman Garrett, yes.
Member Silva?
Silva, yes.
Member Valentine?
Valentine, yes.
Member Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Chair Runs, sorry. Member Winters?
Winters, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Chair Runstrom?
Chair abstains and the motion passes. All right, so we're back to the full motion. Any other, Linda?
I just want to make sure that the fifth graders at Choxit would be included in seeking out information about athletics on the middle school level, since they're in the middle school.
Okay. Are we ready to vote on the motion? All right, Randy?
Member Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Vice Chair Haber?
Haber, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Gustafson abstain.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Kaminsky?
Kaminsky, yes.
Member Lavoy?
Lavoy, yes.
Member Poole?
Poole, yes.
Member Silva?
Silva, yes.
Member Winters?
Winters, yes.
Member Gavarden?
Gavarden, yes.
Member Lorway?
Lorway, yes.
Member Seaman Garrett?
Seaman Garrett, yes.
Member Valentine?
Valentine, yes.
Member Beardmore?
Beardmore, yes.
Member Longbelio?
Longueville, yes.
Chair Runstrom?
Chair abstains and the motion passes. All right. Any other discussion on this agenda item?
I don't think I voted.
Did you get Member Brannan's vote? How do you vote, Jana?
Yes.
Jana votes yes. The motion still passes. All right. Any further discussion? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving on to Chair's opening remarks. And the first thing we're going to do is welcome the Project 351 8th grade ambassadors for this year. And I'm going to recognize Mary to start.
Good evening. My annual trip to Wachusett Regional School District School Committee meeting, it's always a pleasure to see familiar faces and see a lot of new faces. Thank you for allowing us a few minutes of your meeting time to share good news about some of your 8th grade students who are standing behind me. I'm Mary Kringen, retired 9 years ago as the Thomas Prince School Principal, but I'm also the chair of the Educators Advisory Group and a regional coach for Project 351. As many of you know, Project 351 is in its 14th year of being an independent, non-profit organization that builds youth-led service by engaging a selected 8th grade ambassador from each of the 351 cities and towns. Students from all backgrounds come together to transform communities, elevate kindness, advance social justice, gain the courage, compassion, and capabilities to lead change. The ambassadors work with like-minded peers and learn about other nonprofit groups, as well as learning about the culture and opportunities that other school districts and regions offer. It's also a great way to learn about the geography of Massachusetts and learn the names of all 351 cities and towns, which is a challenge, especially from the Berkshires. Wachusett Regional School District has been involved since the beginning in 2011, when it was just a single one-day event of community service. Since then, 5,000 ambassadors have impacted 1.3 million lives through service, donations of clothing to Cradles to Crayons, donations for disadvantaged youth in foster care, donations of personal care products for our active military personnel and veterans, and donations of food for local food pantries. It's my pleasure to introduce to you your class of 2024's ambassadors from the Wachusett Regional School Districts. They just completed their first project. They collected clothes for Cradles to Crayons, and I've asked them to share a few words about the lessons they learned from this project. They will each introduce themselves and tell you what school they are attending, and then share their thoughts. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kylie Kruger. I am the ambassador of Sterling from Choxet Middle School. Tonight, I would like to share with you my participation in this spring's Cradles to Crayons clothing drive and some takeaways I gathered. I collected clothing from 5 community sites. They included the middle and elementary schools, 2 daycares, and our public library. My goal was to connect with as many families in town as possible. I was able to collect a total of 61 bags. I learned so many valuable lessons during my project, so here are a few of the most important ones. Strategies to share information with a larger group, as well as how to connect with mentors and organization directors to plan my drive. I was very excited by the amount of support I received from Sterling citizens, some who cleaned out their closets to pass along donations, and others who donated brand new clothing. I developed a better understanding of the challenges children across the world and across the state and throughout the world face daily. And finally, I realized how supportive my family, friends, teachers, and principal are. I'm proud to serve as Sterling's ambassador for 351 and look forward to the rest of this service year and beyond. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Norelis Ponda Garcia, and I'm honored to say that I represent Holden as a Project 351 ambassador. Thank you for having us here tonight. It is certainly a pleasure. So with the help and guidance from Project 351, I was able to conduct a clothing drive in my hometown. Other donations went to Cradles to Crayons, a national nonprofit organization that focuses on ending clothing insecurity. It was a very heartwarming experience, and it taught me more about humanity and humility. In Holden, I engaged and involved my community so the project could grow beyond me as an ambassador and my school, so I tried to promote it to the whole town. The 3 elementary schools and my middle school, Mount View Middle School, all agreed to be host sites. I was marveled at the kindness of my community. 67 13-gallon bags were collected. I felt humbled by how greatly my community responded. It was a very magical feeling when I touched the clothing donated, and I knew that I was touching clothes that would help children feel confident, empowered, and strong in their daily lives. Project 351 has helped me see that communities, when presented a problem and a solution, are willing to help and work towards the solution to the issue. I learned more about appreciating my family, friends, and educators, which without them, this beautiful project wouldn't have been possible. I'm very grateful that Project 351 has given me the opportunity to give back to my community and help me know that my generation, the future, is on the right track for the time to come. We are leaders, and this is just the beginning of how we change the world. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nick Brady, and I'm representing Princeton this year as the Project 351 ambassador. So recently we did this really cool thing, the Cradles to Crayons clothing drive. It was all about helping kids who don't have enough clothes. At first, I signed up to help out because I wanted to make a difference. But as I got into it, contacting places to serve as donation sites, making posters, and getting a team together, I realized it was actually kind of fun. Plus, I got to recruit friends to help sort and drop off the clothing. Seeing all the donations coming in and knowing they were going to help other kids felt really good. And when we dropped off the clothes for kids who really needed them, I could see that my friends also felt really good too. Not only did we collect, sort, and donate 18 bags of clothing to Cradles to Crayons, but we also collected an additional 13 bags of clothes and shoes that did not meet the criteria for Cradles to Clarence. So we donated them to another worthwhile cause. It started as just wanting to help, but it turned into this awesome experience that taught me a lot about helping others and working together. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Emiliani Joan Rodriguez, and I am the 2024 ambassador for Paxton. On launch day, I had the opportunity to go to La Colaborativa in Chelsea, Massachusetts. Seeing so many people line up with the hope of getting something as simple as applesauce for their children really inspired me. It made me so much prouder and happier to help a community very close to my heart. To see people just like you that you can relate to on a deeper level really impacted me. It also made me realize how fortunate I am to have the things that I have. Not everyone is as fortunate as us, and it really made me reflect on how good of a life I live. Without Project 351, I wouldn't have been able to see this and see how much this impacted me. Thank you.
Hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Ella Boya, and I am currently the 2024 Project 51 Ambassador of Central Tree Middle School in Rutland. Being a part of Project 51 and leading this Cradles to Crayons drive has helped me see that everyone is a part of something bigger than themselves. We are all human, and everyone has that in common. We are all interconnected and intertwined, small paint strokes of an art piece, leaves a part of a bigger tree, and cells that make up a larger organism. Separately, we achieve our purpose, but collectively, we form a beautiful masterpiece. The first lesson that I learned is the power of community. I could not have achieved the success that we had without the support of my teachers, principal, and students. I say thank you to Mrs. Ward and Mrs. Wood and all my fellow students. After the drive, I realized that I want to do the service of God and of others, and eventually leave the earth better than I found it. Over and over, I used to tell myself that I was doing this to how it made me feel inside, but no. I realized that I was doing this to benefit other people, and this is what I was made to do, this is who I am, and this is who I want to grow up to be. And I am so grateful to Project 51 and many others for helping me see that. Thank you.
They truly are amazing. Those were their words. They were just given topics they could speak about, and I think they crushed it. We want to end in gratitude for allowing us to be here tonight. I believe that celebrating good news about students is necessary. I also wish to express my appreciation to the school administrators and teachers who selected these outstanding young leaders. I look forward to watching them develop and enhance their leadership skills and mentor them for many years to come. If you'd like to learn more about Project 351, you can visit project351.org and watch some of our programming on YouTube. This year's theme is Powered by Purpose, and I believe they all have a purpose and they're powered by that. And they will be traveling to Gillette Stadium on June 2nd for a reunion, where they will do more community service, civic engagement, and watch a graduating senior receive a $20,000 scholarship from the Kraft Foundation. So if they stay with the program, and they'll have that opportunity to apply to be on the Alumni Leadership Council, they will have that opportunity. So thank you, and we'll take any questions that you may have.
Sherry.
Not a question, but I am proud of all of you and your service and your willingness to participate in the program. And Mary, thank you for bringing them every year. It's a bright point.
My pleasure, and I'm glad we're allowed to do that, because it is refreshing to see young 8th graders find their voice and be able to stand up here and speak in front of all of you. Knowing that they're on television can be a little nerve-wracking, and so I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Laura.
Thank you. Well done. Your words are inspiring to all of us, to me especially. It's great to see such extraordinary energy coming out of our schools, and so I thank you for all your intentions and all your thoughts. And I know I've said this in years past, and I'll say it again, that this is one of the benefits that we have of being a regional school district. In many communities throughout Massachusetts, each district gets to send one child, and instead we get to send 5, and you get to graduate up to the high school, where now you are part of a larger community of members who have been part of this program. So you are, one of 5, but you are also one of 20 who are up at the high school. 20. Do the math. Goodness, it's been a long day. But this is just this is part of our traditions, and it's one of those shining moments that we get to send 5 students from our community to go and explore this and explore your purpose in life and bring that up to the high school. So, thank you for all the work that you've done and all the work that I anticipate you will continue to do as you serve our community and the world around us. Thank you.
Right. I just wanted to say congratulations to all of you, and thank you for representing the district, and I really look forward to seeing what you all do in the future. Thank you. Good job. Good job. Next up, we just have, right now, enrollment is open for early college and the dual enrollment program, and Vice Chair Haber is going to say a few words about those programs.
Just this past week, Principal Pratt sent out information to parents at the high school of sophomores and juniors, I believe, rising juniors and seniors, to participate in both the early college program that we heard a little bit about before and the dual enrollment program. The early college program is run during the summer from July and August, and there are 4 classes that are being offered at Worcester State. And then beyond that, for seniors, there's a dual enrollment program that is going to be offering 1 class this year at the high school, and then it will be a program that's growing, hopefully. Sign up for those is by May 3rd, so if you guys can make sure that any applications go in by then. And if you have questions, Becky DeMarco is the one who is heading the program, and she can answer those.
Okay, thank you. All right. Since we're getting towards the end of the year, I'd also like to take some time to thank our 2 student ambassadors, well, not the ambassadors, your student representatives for all the work that you've done this year. Addison and Lily, you've both been outstanding this year. I've been just really impressed by all your work. Your commitment to coming to all the meetings and staying to the bitter end sometimes, even here till 11 o'clock, has been amazing. And I just think you've asked great questions right along, and you've really provided exceptional insights into what's going on at the high school. And I've been overwhelmingly impressed. So thank you for everything you've done, and good luck in your future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Just lastly, this is our last scheduled meeting for the year of this committee, so I know there's several members who won't be with us next year. So I just want to thank you all for your service to the committee. Hopefully I'll be back next year, although I'm up for election. But yes, thank you everyone for everything you've done this year. It's been a long year, and I really appreciate all your service. All right. So the next thing on the agenda is actually executive session. So I would accept a motion to enter into executive session to discuss strategy for contract negotiations with all bargaining units, as the chair deems a discussion in public session would have an adverse effect on the district's bargaining position, as well as to discuss the contract of the district treasurer and discuss WREA level 3 grievances to return to public session.
So moved.
Second.
Jana and Kumara. Roll call vote.
Member Kaminsky?
Kaminsky abstain.
Vice Chair Haber?
Haber, yes.
Member Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Member Poole?
Poole, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Valentine? Member Lorway?
Lorway, yes.
Member Brennan?
Brennan, yes.
Member Gavardin?
Gavardin, yes.
Member Silva?
Silva, yes.
Member Winters?
Yes.
Member Gustafson?
Gustafson, yes.
Member Longbeliel?
Longbeliel, yes.
Member Salmon Garrett?
Salmon Garrett, yes.
Member Beardmore?
Beardmore, yes.
Member Valentine?
Valentine, yes.
Member Lavoy?
Lavoy, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Chair Rundstrom?
Chair abstains, and the motion passes. We're now in executive session. All right, we're now returning to public session. The next item on the agenda tonight is actually our student representative. So Addison and Lily, do you have something for us tonight?
We do.
Excellent.
I thought you were going first.
Oh, okay. So first, we want to touch the topic of outreach and stuff that is going on at the high school. With the, we participated and held a career fair at Wachusett. There were 161 job applications with 53 job offers and 35 confirmed hires. 8th grade tours happened this past week, I believe. I would like to thank NHS for that. They did a wonderful job executing it. And then there is a program for Girls Who Code after school for middle schoolers that's being organized through the high school.
There's lots of exciting events to look forward to, especially for seniors. There was a senior class meeting last week where a calendar of events was distributed, and then prom tickets are on sale for both junior and senior prom, I believe. And then, go ahead.
Okay. And then as for some events that have happened at the high school, Unified Track had their first successful meet, and I believe they had another one today. We had the pleasure of hosting French exchange students from Bordeaux, I believe. NHS threw a party for them. And Science, NHS had their induction.
And then one final thing is AP exams are fast approaching, so good luck to everyone taking them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for our student representatives? Thank you very much once again. Thanks. All right, we'll now move on to the superintendent's report, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Riley.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to wait for Mr. Sklar to get the PowerPoint up, but just wanted to share real briefly. Tonight we were going to take a moment. I usually talk about students. Today I want to talk a little bit about staff, give you a student support update from Dr. Litaz, a special education needs intervention report from our Director of Special Education, Joan DeAngelis, an ECC programming update, and then also a budget update tonight. So I just want to first start off with some staff appreciation. And when I first came into the district, one of the things that was obvious to me is that, our staff is one of the strengths of the district. And we're coming into a time frame where there are some traditional appreciations for different staff members, and I just wanted to call those out right now. So next week begins Teacher Appreciation Week. I say it typically when we look at teachers when they gain professional status, and I say it every year when I meet the new teachers, and I really mean this, is good teachers make a difference, and great ones can change the trajectory of a child's life. I don't know about you, but when I think about adults who have had the most profound impact on my life, a lot of them are teachers. And so teaching is very hard work. It's certainly a craft. I think we honestly a lot of times hear about the hours teachers work. You can pretty much double it because it's not the time they're in front of students. The best teachers and all teachers really are taking time to prep, grade work, and do a lot of that work at home. And so thanking all of our teachers for all their hard work, including in that, because here we go, I'm going to do an exhaustive list, and I know I'm going to forget somebody, so I apologize in advance. But when I say teachers, I'm including our guidance, speech, OT, PT, and school psychologists, also all our Unit B positions like our speech language pathologist assistants, coders, and other positions. School Nurse Appreciation Day is actually coming up, I think, a week from Wednesday. I know all of our school nurses keep our kids safe, and we appreciate all of their efforts. It's important that we don't forget the support folks who help all of our students. I've mentioned this before. Some of our paraprofessionals have the greatest relationships with the kids in the district. Their Appreciation Day had already passed. That was April 3rd. And also recognize our ABA-PAs that are a fundamental part of a lot of our programming. Administrative Assistance Day. Randy, thank you for all you did. We feted her a little bit last week. As we mentioned earlier, a lot of the stuff wouldn't get done for this committee without having Randy at the helm. Custodian Appreciation Week took place in October. They keep our buildings clean and, again, have a lot of great relationships with our kids. An appreciation to our cafeteria workers. Assistant principals somehow got a week of appreciation. That was April 1st through 5th. And we're in negotiations with them, so that's just a joke. But Principal Day is actually going to be May 1st. IT Day, September 17th. Somehow Barry Sklar got that highlighted. Nice job, Barry. I did that. He didn't do that. I just wanted to do that. And then also all the unsung heroes who I didn't mention here who are clearly making a difference. All of your efforts are appreciated, and we're very lucky to have the staff we have, and so I just wanted to take a moment to thank them. And then Chair Renstrom had mentioned it earlier, and I want to thank all of you on school committee. I know some people have your terms that are ending, and I think you have a really hard job. And I also think it doesn't get recognized enough, the amount of effort and time that you put into your positions. I think we all know we have a lot of subcommittee meetings, and then people take their jobs really seriously, and they put a lot of time both during those meetings and outside of those meetings, and it's not easy. And so, and I already have my evaluation, so I'm not pandering for anything. I am telling you, though, I've worked in several of the districts, and I know the time and investment that you put into it, and I completely appreciate all the work you have done. For those faces who are coming back, looking forward to seeing you for another term. For those who are leaving for brighter opportunities or who are just going to get a little more rest and relaxation in your lives, thank you for your service. It's truly appreciated. And then just one final note, I want to thank the chair. I feel so grateful, so thankful. I started with Chair Haber, and I've had Chair Runstrom this past year. Absolute incredible support. I know I haven't made your life easy at times, which I apologize for, but I can tell you you've been a constant, and I truly appreciate your leadership. So thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask Dr. Maria Litaz to come to the podium. She's going to talk to us a little bit about 504s, Title IX changes, and then also bullying across the district.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the time this evening to provide the school committee and the public with an update. Civil rights, bullying prevention, this is one of the areas that I work greatly on under my umbrella, and it's such important work because it really has a large impact across the entire district. So I think it's important that we continue to include this in the focus on information that we are sharing with people on our progress. Before I do that, though, I did want to just provide a slide. So this slide basically has my relevant credentials. Why do I know what I'm talking about? Why is, how am I professionally prepared to contribute to the work in the district? As many of you know, I joined the district at the beginning of this school year, so I'm continuing to get to know the district, and I want you also to continue to get to know me. So in my previous professional work, I evaluated, analyzed policies, procedures, and practices with respect to civil rights and bullying. So this is work that is not new to me. Again, this is relevant training, advanced training that I have and maintain that's relevant to this work and ensuring that our district continues to improve in all of these areas, and we're making sure that we keep this a priority. So this presentation, again, is just going to be the preliminary level work that I have started in trying to understand where we are as a district around Title IX, Section 504, and bullying compliance. We have a lot of more work to do. All right. So I do want to actually say thank you to the girls flag football team for including Title IX in their presentation. I think that's really important because when the regulations changed in 2020, there was such a focus and shift to thinking about Title IX and sexual harassment. There was a big focus also on due process. But historically, when we think about Title IX, most people will think about female sports and ensuring that there are equitable opportunities. So that is another area I'm not going to speak to in this presentation, but for future work that is going to occur is really evaluating our athletics and ensuring that there's equity across the district. So I just want to say thank you to the girls flag football team for that. So Title IX is a federal civil rights law, and it requires schools to take prompt and effective action to end any sexual discrimination that is in our educational program and activities. In addition to that, we want to prevent its reoccurrence, and we want to remedy its effects. So I mentioned in 2020 there was a substantial regulation change, and most recently the new regulation change was just issued on April 19th. So that's going to become effective and enforceable as of August 1. So that's really important for us to know as a district. What it is going to look like, though, is again a lot of work that we're going to do to make sure that we are in line with a lot of our the priorities and values that we've communicated around equity. I just want to note that the new regulations, they're over 1,500 pages long. So we're still going through the regulations. We're still trying to understand them thoroughly. But some of the key points that we do know is they are going to be more flexible for recipients, so school districts, and on how they structure and staff grievance procedures. The 2020 regulations, they were not public education friendly at all. They were really, when they were developed, a lot of it had to do with issues that were being seen in higher education, and it really didn't take into account it's a completely different atmosphere at the public education level. And for example, one of the issues was the requirement around very specific and different members of the grievance team. So specifically, we had a Title IX coordinator, we would have an investigator, and we'd have a decision maker. Typically 3 separate people. In the public school system, that can be a stretch, and we would have to figure out ways to be compliant, and that might be sharing administrators from other districts who are trained in those roles to be a decision maker for a different school or to be an investigator for a different school. So one of the remedies for the 2024 regulations release is going to be that they have recognized that this puts a tremendous burden on public education system, and we will be allowed to go back to one administrator model where an administrator could be the investigator and also the decision maker. So that will alleviate some of the burden. It is going to also increase some of our jurisdiction and reporting access around conduct. One of the factors around that is going to be prior, the regulations stated that conduct needed to be severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive, and now that and all 3 is going to be reduced to 2. So that's really going to increase what will fall under Title IX's definition. Also, there's going to be, I feel like it's pretty similar training requirements, but whenever we have new training, it's including that into all of the other professional development and training that's required. So it's making sure that we do that in a thoughtful way that ensures that staff understand what their roles and responsibilities are and are able to act accordingly. So what is that going to require of us? So by, again, August 1st, we will be required to implement the new regulations. So we will need to really engage in this process of evolving the district's current Title IX programming to be compliant with the new regulations. We're going to have to look at our policy and look at our process changes that will need to occur in order for compliance of the new regulations. And then again, as I mentioned, that staff training to make sure that all stakeholder groups have adequate training around Title IX and what their roles and responsibilities are. Okay, next I'm going to talk about bullying. With respect to bullying, I put a link there on the bottom of the slide, which is the full Mass General law around bullying in schools. But for today, I just want to focus, again, it's just a high-level overview, is really our bullying prevention and intervention plan, reporting, and curriculum. So those are the three areas that I want to give the committee an update on. So first, the bullying prevention and intervention plan. So when I came into the district, our plan was last updated March 2020. In reality, our plan needed to be updated biannually, so it was already past due for that update. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has some great resources for districts. This includes a checklist that ensures districts make sure that they contain all of the legislative requirements for the local plan, as well as having a model bullying prevention and intervention plan. So we did compare and evaluate our plan against to make sure it was legislatively compliant, and then also compared it against that model plan. And then finally, one of the other requirements when we're updating our plan is to get stakeholder input. So the plan was communicated out to our parents and our families, and they had an opportunity to provide comments and feedback. So we had 28 responses to the plan, the draft plan. So 25% of the comments were favorable, so that's only 7 to be fully transparent. So these are the two categories that stuck out. Other comments were in pretty neutral, and but these were the two categories that had significant comments towards. So one was favorable comments, and then the other area of comments was 18% communicated either the need for more staff training around how to follow the plan, or they felt that the previous plan was not being followed. So this was a number of 5 people. And then the chart there on the bottom just demonstrates of the 28 how many responses came from each of the schools. Okay, so the next component of bullying, as I mentioned, that I wanted to focus on is data. So really our annual reporting, this is the requirement for what all districts need to report. So the number of reported allegations of bullying or retaliation, that was a new reporting requirement as of the 21-22 school year. And then the other two reporting areas that I highlighted are the number and nature of substantiated incidents of bullying or retaliation, and the number of students disciplined for engaging in bullying and or retaliation. So on this slide, it displays the number of students disciplined for bullying in the 22-23 school year. So the link, again, if anybody would like to see this data, it's available on the DESE website. For our purposes, I sorted it for bullying. You'll see at the top there that drop-down option is sorted for bullying, but you can, if anybody is interested, can see all different types of discipline sorts that are available. So according to the data that's available in 2023 year, we had 5 students reported for discipline for bullying. I will note, on that previous slide, I had 2 other categories, but I won't have the numbers for that reporting. And the reason being, when I tried to pull it from the Department of Education's website, there's actually a link at the bottom of that top paragraph that says School Safety and Discipline Reporting, so SSDR report. When you click on that, the link doesn't work. I also want to say, though, I think part of the reason why it's not available is I think that the department is still trying to work out the definitions for schools around what those categories mean. So what does it mean if a student is, there's an allegation, right? More of a clear definition, because all school districts aren't reporting it the same way. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity here for us to have clearer definitions for all of our schools so that they're reporting consistently and accurately as well. All right, and then the third component of bullying that I wanted to speak to tonight is around the curriculum that we are required to deliver to our students. I do want to say, too, that this is a piece of the ongoing evaluation that's occurring as part of the strategic plan around SEL. And then I also wanted to emphasize here the importance of Tier 1 instruction. Because I think when I hear and listen to the criticisms around the prevention and intervention plan, I feel like the feedback has a strong focus around adult response. How are we not responding or following our plan accurately? But I think it's equally important, or more important, in fact, that we're educating our students and preparing them so that there's a reduction in peer conflicts and negative interactions, right? That's where we want to put our focus. So if we just think about our kids today and how they're growing up, and we think about our own education and how we grew up and our, right, I know, it does not look the same. They've been impacted, obviously, by several years of COVID and lack of social interaction during that time. But then when we also think about their really high level of exposure to technology, when we think about how kids learn, right? Kids learn through play. Mm-hmm. And if they're not having these natural opportunities to interact and to play with each other because they have a higher level of time on technology, there's going to be an impact on misinterpreting or not understanding how to respond to peer conflict, right? So this is where we need to make sure that as a district, we're focusing on this as an important area in helping our students and reducing the issues of incidents of bullying that are reported in schools. Before I go on to the next slide, one of the other areas that we want to try to help with this is, as I mentioned when I came to talk with you last, we did receive a grant this year around social emotional learning. And that is going to allow us to secure some curriculum for piloting. And I just wanted to emphasize, even though we're piloting curriculum, I want to make sure that the process that we go through to select the curriculum is as robust as the process is for when we select any other curriculum. And then also, it's going to allow us other opportunities around professional development for staff and offer opportunities for student programming, things around grade level assemblies and things like that to help increase the amount of education that we're providing to students. Okay, and then my last slide as an update is around Section 504. Again, this is another area that is tremendously important for the district, because really this is a civil rights law that protects all people with disabilities. So not only students on special education, but students just who have disabilities who may have 504 plans or not, right? So it's important to understand that this is a tremendously important civil rights law. So on May 6th of 2022, OCR did announce that it intended to update Section 504. And that was a pretty significant announcement because 504 has not been updated in like 45, 46 years. It has been quite stale, to say the least. So originally, the proposed rule was expected to be released in August of 2023. However, the U.S. Department of Education is still drafting that proposed regulation, and it has not publicly announced a new release timeline. I think partially the delay in that has been they have had such a high focus on updating and getting Title IX, that process through. But we do anticipate that the new rule is going to clarify how student accommodations under the law align or they depart from rights for students with disabilities under the IDEA, or Individuals with Disabilities Act. So similar to Title IX, it is going to require us to engage in the process evolving the district's 504 program, identifying specific policies and processes that need to be changed to be compliant with the new regulations, and then also develop a training plan for making sure all of our stakeholders are educated and prepared. Okay. That is my very quick overview of what I've been doing around the civil rights and bullying, and I just will open it up to questions, and then also wanted to offer there might be things I might not be able to answer, but additional requested information that I can come back to you with.
Okay, thank you. Dana.
I just wanted to say thank you for your presentation. I learned something important, which is that our district must report data on bullying to DESE. Very interesting. Thank you.
Carl, I see you, Matt. I see Sherry, Malia.
So one of the things, just for other committee members, I had asked the chair to include something regarding bullying on our most recent agenda. As recently I've received multiple notifications from parents of children in Paxton with concerns about bullying in the school, to the extent that children have been hospitalized. And so it raised a lot of questions for me, and I'd asked administration to kind of provide some of this information kind of about how we process bullying, which I was hoping to see that, didn't really see anything about like student alleges bullying, what happens from there. And I understand that it's in the plan. And so, again, there wasn't anything that you said that has allayed my concerns about the bullying that potentially can go on within our schools. What you have shown there for the 2021-22 year of 5 students, just randomly, that means that in half of our schools, we had 0 bullying for an entire year. And I'm not suggesting that bullying's rampant, but there's no way that that can be right, that we have 0 instances of bullying for an entire school year. I can't fathom how that can be possibly correct. I also can't understand why, when Mass General Law requires that we as a district, as an administration, report bullying information to the state, that means we're generating a report. Why are we trying to then go to the state to see the information that we reported? We should already have all that information. Like, I understand you weren't here for the 2021 year or the 22-23 year, but that should be in the office somewhere. Like, your predecessor should have had that report somewhere that you could just go back and say, okay, this is what we reported to the state, rather than, oh, it's not available on the state's website. So I can't tell you what we had reported, even though we had generated that. So I'm kind of gobsmacked that that wasn't there. Further, for bullying, kind of the way that we approach it, concerns that I have that still haven't been allayed. Like, in our bullying prevention plan, there's several tiers of kind of options that can happen if student alleges bullying and an investigation's underway. But what concerns me is like with regard to that. And so I'm not going to go into details about a current allegation because the district is doing their job to investigate it. But Dr. Latez, and because I've been CC'd by the parent, one of the things, and the parent had made a request about having students put in different classrooms. And you had said, generally speaking, respondent cannot be removed from a classroom prior to the conclusion of an investigation. That's fair. Further, that would not be a likely solution even if there was a finding of a bullying allegation. I find it concerning that right before we've even investigated, before we've even gone into it, we're saying, well, we're probably not going to do these remedies, which are clearly listed in our bullying prevention plan. And so I find, like, that blows my mind. And so the things that I've heard tonight, the things I've heard from parents, the things I've seen in this presentation, it's raised more questions for me than have provided answers. And so for the chair, if you want me to provide additional list of questions for administration to respond, I certainly can do that, because I was certainly hoping to hear more about what the district has seen in bullying and how we respond to instances of bullying than we got tonight.
I think that would be appropriate if you want to provide questions
Okay.
in writing that could be addressed at a future meeting.
Can I just quickly just address
sure, go ahead.
the data, because I find that frustrating as well, being new to the district and trying to understand accuracy. As I mentioned, one of the things that we want to make sure is that we are reporting accurately, and that we're looking at how that people clearly understand what is required of the reporting and what each of the definitions means, because that's a little ambiguous right now. We also have had an update to our Power School, our student database system, which also has caused issue with us being able to get clear data from previous years. So that, too, has been an impact on how we've been able to secure the data. But I hope to have that, because it's important for me when I'm looking across and evaluating prior years going forward to have that. So it is something that I'm continuing to work to secure.
I had Malia next and then Matt. Malia, are you on?
I am. Hopefully this goes better than last time. So one of my questions was about how this data is being collected, because I was shocked to see 5. Now, granted, knowing the overall lack of data we've had from some previous administrations, I'm not really that surprised. However, I do know, I mean, there were probably that many reports just among our, our peer group or our neighborhood a couple of years ago. I mean, if you listen to parents. So I don't know if they were all reported, but I'm curious what constitutes an actual report and how we are, what kind of education we're doing to students and families to encourage them to report things. I know we have an anonymous form online even that they can use if they're afraid of, retaliation or if they see something. But I don't know how many people are actually using that information or really feel like, how much education are we doing? How much are we just putting it in an email? That's not going to do it. We need to do consistent education and make sure that people are actually reporting it. And if you go to your staff, your principal or whatnot about something, is that actually, is all of that getting reported? I don't know. I know of some experiences where kids have moved to other schools and there was no record of issues with other students at their previous school when they moved. And I know some of that's improving, but not all. And so there's just it seems there's a lot of inconsistency among our schools and also among how things are handled, and also really how things are being reported and how comfortable students feel reporting, or even staff. I'd really like to know in the future how we are encouraging them to do that, because I hear things anecdotally all the time And I can tell you it's more than 5. It's probably 5 last week. So, and I hate to say that, but at some schools it is quite high. So I appreciate that information in the future. But I do appreciate this update on the policies and the, the different federal policies that are changing that we need to be aware of. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to clarify very quickly, so the graph that I showed and the data that you're able to go online and look specifically in bullying around that the 5, is 5 students that were disciplined for bullying, right? So that is that number. Around reporting or the other areas, we have opportunities for growth in, again, making sure that staff understand what the clear definitions of the nuances that the state is asking us to report on, and that we're doing it consistently and in an accurate manner. So we definitely have opportunities to continue to grow there.
Okay. Matt?
I'm glad that Member Ottmer had spoken first, because he had a lot of the concerns that I have, and I'm glad that the number 5, not glad, but the clarification that number 5 is discipline. But I want to just share, I'm a numbers person, so I looked at CDC and a number of different places, and did you know that 1 in 5 high school students reports bullying in school physical location? According to the CDC, 1 in 6 reports it over the internet. Both of our bullying policies cover both of those. Additionally, 30% of female students have reported bullying according to the CDC, 19% of male students. We shared a statistics of 6,881 students. 5 students were disciplined. That is less than 1/110th of a percentage point. If 1% of all students were disciplined for bullying, that number would be 68.81. If we looked at the CDC numbers, 20% of students being bullied would yield 1,376 students reporting bullying. So if we were to fall into a baseline metric of 1,376 students reporting that, are we comfortable as administration saying we've disciplined 5 students out of a population of 6,881?
So I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think it brings up another important area, which is student voice and students being able to communicate their experiences and their concerns. We do have an anonymous reporting tool, but in addition to that, what are other ways that we can collect this type of information from students? We are looking to do that through our Panorama student survey. We also survey students through the Youth Risk Behavior Survey that is done every 2 years. I'd have to check what our district does specifically around the frequency of that, but these are other student-facing surveys that they respond to these types of questions, and that is going to be more informative to help to drive the changes that we need to make and the support that we need to provide to students.
Just a quick follow-up. I think we should really look at the outputs of, and I would ask administration to provide a report on the number of bullying instances that have been reported. I was around a long time ago when the first bullying policy and the bullying intervention policy was built. One of the things that was really done at that point was encouraging students that observe bullying to report that. And I think that's an opportunity that this district has. More often than not, it's the person that stands silent that can speak up and can report that. And I would love to see an area that provides that in a way that provides that in a area that looks at that as a uplifting of somebody who's willing to take that, because that is one of the strongest skills you can take from an education experience and apply in life, is to recognize when there's wrongdoing and being willing to be the person to step up and speak for it.
Sherry?
My points have been covered.
Okay, Linda?
I'm just curious if this is related or not. We have the new law that's specific to Massachusetts about interventions and counseling and having to show steps that the school has taken before suspensions and things like that. Would that be part of the number of students disciplined for bullying, or is that entirely separate? And I'm just wondering if that's going to further reduce the numbers we see going forward once we have data for when that law has gone into effect?
It could have an impact, and that's specifically around suspension, because we really want to reduce and eliminate times when we're excluding children. Sending them home and as the only source of remedy that's not educating our students. So that could have an impact on the reporting numbers, but it's hard to say because that actually is relatively new within, the past few years, so.
Right, I'm just thinking that in terms of seeing, 5 does seem like an artificially low number. But in the future, I do wonder if we're going to be looking at 2. You know what I mean, with the impact of that specific law and what Massachusetts, not national schools, would be looking at.
Right.
That's all, thank you.
I think this is, again, an opportunity to look at where we are, look at our data that we have, and ask questions so that we can uncover really like what is occurring here, right? So these are just opportunities for us to continue to improve.
I think, Dana, did you have a question? And then Jana.
I apologize because I couldn't see the slide very well. Data collected on bullying, is that from students reporting? Does that include teachers who report seeing bullying occurring in their classrooms?
So the data that's reported to the state is typically administrators reporting into our student database system to track the number of students that have been disciplined, the number of bullying allegations that we receive, those types of things. So it would be administrator-driven. So it would funnel up, basically. If a teacher received a report of bullying, they would be required to involve administration to rectify. So in theory, it's funneling up, but administrators are reporting.
Just briefly, if a teacher sees bullying occurring and the students don't report it, does the law require her to report that to administration?
The law requires, and humanity requires that the educator intervene.
Okay, Jana.
Thank you. I just had 2 quick points. One was to go off of what Member Woodland was saying, is that I know that we're working on restorative justice in the district, and so I don't see that these type of data charts is going to capture how often that's being used and how effective it is. And so I'd hope in the future to see more reports that capture that sort of data. And just to echo what my other committee members are saying, we're all online these days on social media, and there's so many posts from parents asking for advice what to do because their child is bullied, and then there's hundreds and hundreds of comments underneath that. And so I feel like parents and students are definitely not reporting as much as it's happening, either because they fear that something, administration won't act on it, or it might be worse for their child socially if they do report it. But it seems very, very common. It seems to be 4th, 5th grade even. We're not talking just middle school and elementary and high school. And so I think we need to do more work on reaching out to families, because they're just definitely discussing it amongst themselves. They're just not discussing it with the schools. So, thank you.
Okay. I'm pretty sure we're going to come back to this subject, and we've had additional requests to administration for information. So I would suggest do we move on? We have a lot of other stuff.
I'm sorry,
Real quick. Yep.
just if I could add one more piece into this for information is if we could take a look at how safety plans are developed for when there is an allegation and what is done during the investigation. I know we've mentioned this in our diversity subcommittee, so to see some kind of formal explanation of how those are developed, I think would be helpful, and like how consistent they are across the 13 schools. And I think that would get at that kind of mix of the traditional thoughts of discipline versus restorative justice versus the other kind of gray areas that might be harder to capture. So that would be my request as well. Thank you.
All right. So I think we'll probably come back to this in in a future meeting, but thank you for now.
Thank you.
I was going to ask Director of Special Education, Joan DeAngelis, to give a report. She's going to be talking about our needs intervention notification from DESE and some of the data that's behind it.
Good evening. Thanks for having me this evening. I'm going to present tonight the IDEA Special Ed LEA determination under Part B for Individuals with Disabilities Act. So I know you have a copy of this report, so tonight what I really want to do is go through what is the report, what does it mean, how are we evaluated in the different sections. So the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed is required to make local educational agency LEA determinations annually about the performance of every LEA within the requirements for IDEA. So the U.S. Department of Ed annually determines if Massachusetts either meets IDEA requirements, needs assistance in implementing them, needs interventions in implementing them, or needs substantial intervention in implementing them. So what are the categories the states use for LEA determination? So I just highlighted that in the last slide, so you can see the percentages in which the categories are listed below where the determinations are made. So there are 4 categories: meets requirements, and there's percentages between 75 and 100%, needs assistance 65 to 74.9, needs intervention 0 to 64.9, and needs substantial intervention, which is obviously less than that 64.9 point. So the next thing I want to talk about is how the determinations are made in Massachusetts. So there are 2 sections that are reflected for determinations. They are performance and compliance in special education. And I just want to note that this year, the 5-year cohort graduation rate and least restrictive environment, which are indicators 5 and 6, have been prioritized by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So when we get to the rubric, you're going to see that both of those are weighted more heavily because that's their focus this year. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is what performance areas are assessed. So these are the 4 areas that are assessed. The annual dropout rates for students with disabilities. This comes from our 2022 data. Our 5-year cohort graduation rate for students with disabilities from 2021. Our special ed state performance and annual performance plan for indicator 3. Our special ed state performance annual plan, which is indicator 5 and 6. And in the next couple of slides, I'm highlighting these are the performance, but I want to really talk about what is that data and how are each of these categories defined. So the annual dropout rate is defined as students who leave school prior to graduating for reasons other than transferring to another school, or DESE has a category that talks about if students graduate or attain a GED. That is also data they collect. The 5-year cohort graduation rate for students with disabilities, they track a cohort of students who begin in 9th grade through high school and then divide that number of students who graduate within 5 years by the total number of students in that cohort. In other words, the rate provides the percentage of the cohort that the graduation is 5 years or less. The next indicator, indicator 3, is a new indicator that they've used this year as a data point. So I just want to mention that. This is one of those really important indicators that they've selected as being a focus. And it focuses on the assessment of children with IEPs that includes 4 different measurements. So participation rate for children with IEPs, proficiency rate for children with IEPs against grade level academic achievement standards, proficiency rate for children with IEPs against alternative academic achievement standards, and gap in proficiency rates for children with IEPs in all students against grade level academic achievement standards, regular assessment. So this year in particular, the Department of Ed used Great Aid data to compare ELA MCAS data for students with disabilities to compare them with non-disabled 8th grade peers. So that's where we were weighted, and that was what was evaluated this year. So indicator 5 and 6 is another performance area. Indicator 5 looks and collects information for children who are ages 5, kindergarten through 21, and it looks at how much school time that students with IEPs are with students without disabilities. It looks at how many students go to their local schools or a separate school. And there are 3 measures for that. So measure A is in regular classes, 80% of more of the day. Measurement B is in regular classes less than 40% of the day, and measurement C goes to a separate school, residential facility, or is a homebound or hospitalized placements, or out of district. Indicator 6 evaluates preschool children who have IEPs and receive most of their services and support either in a regular preschool setting, a separate special education setting, or a home-based educational setting. That's a new category, is home-based, because there are some students that are getting services through IEPs that are coming in for itinerant services, but parents are electing to have them at home and working with them at home. So those are the performance criteria. The next section of this report talks about compliance areas that are assessed. So I'm just going to go through these 4 bullets, and I'll describe each one of the compliance areas. So the first area is the Special Ed State Performance Annual Plan, which is indicator 4B, 9, and 10. The second is the Special Ed State Performance Annual Plan, indicator 11, 12, and 13. I have noted the years that they evaluated based on this, so you will be aware of where the evaluation comes. You probably look at it and say, wow, some of this is 2021, some of this is 22, 23. This is typical for this type of report as they're gathering this data each year. The third one is the identification of noncompliance and the number of findings through public school monitoring or problem resolution systems. And the last one is the timely submission of verified correction of noncompliance. So how are these assessed? Indicator 4B is required by IDEA, and it measures what students with IEPs overall from certain racial ethnic groups receive out-of-school suspensions or expulsions in districts more than students with IEPs statewide. Indicator 9 and 10 are required, and they measure whether students from certain racial or ethnic groups are disproportionately receiving special ed services both in general and in specific disability categories because they were inappropriately determined to be eligible for special education services. I'm going to talk quickly about indicator 11, 12, and 13. And the reason why I say this to you is because we don't have any rubric points in this area because we are not in a tiered focused monitoring year for 22-23. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how the rubric is adjusted, but I will tell you a little bit about each of the indicators because you will see those in coming years when it is a tiered focus monitoring year. So indicator 11 collects data to determine whether students receive initial evals and whether eligibility for special ed is determined within Massachusetts timeline of 45 school working days. Indicator 12 measures the percentage of children referred from early intervention who are found eligible for special ed services who have an IEP implemented on their third birthday. And indicator 13 reviews the secondary transition data. So it's the percentage of youth with IEPs age 16 or above with an IEP that includes appropriate, measurable post-secondary goals that are annually updated. And there's an appropriate transition assessment, transition services that talks about the course of study for each of the students that will reasonably enable the student to meet post-secondary goals and annual IEP goals related to the student's transition service needs. There's also a requirement that there's evidence that the student was invited to the IEP team meeting where transition services are to be discussed, and evidence, if appropriate, a representative for any participating agency that was invited to the IEP team meeting with prior consent of the parent or student who has reached the age of majority. So the last two compliance areas are non-compliance findings from either PSM or PRS, and this is the number of findings of special ed non-compliance, either found through public school monitoring or tiered focus monitoring or through the problem resolution system, and that is combined in a single category. The second one is the timely submission and correction of findings. So if there's a finding of noncompliance in the district has 1 year from that date of notification to correct the issues pertaining to noncompliance. So the next part of this is, what are the total number of points a district can earn? The full rubric has a possible point scale of 38. However, not all districts, including ours, will be eligible to get all points in every column in the rubric. So I put an example in there for you because I think that I just mentioned that indicator 11, 12, and 13, we didn't earn points in those areas. The points were reduced by 4 to 34 total points because we were not evaluated through public school monitoring during this period of time last year. So let's look at the rubric. So what I did was I just described all of these categories to you, and the highlighted green boxes, you can see the points that we earned in each of the categories. So I want to highlight a couple of sections here because I'm sure you'll have questions. When we look back at the annual dropout rate of 2022, that 5.2 put a question in my mind. How many students does that represent? It was 20 students that had dropped out in 2022, while 1,946 students were enrolled. So that seems high to me. I really feel like that's an area that we really need to focus on, and we need to figure out the why students are leaving school or how can we assist them in finishing school, because we know outcomes for students who get a high school diploma are much better. So I don't know if that's pandemic related. I was not here at that time, but it certainly begs the question of what did that school year look like? Because we know the year before, right, we were closed, then we had a hybrid year. I'm sure coming back to school was very challenging for some students. So that's something I think we really need to focus on in the district because we don't want to see a dropout rate of that high. I think the second thing that really stands out to me, which is really of significant concern to me, is indicator 3. When we look at that gap rate data of our 8th graders for students who have disabilities versus their non-disabled peers, we scored in the absolute lowest category here, and that's really concerning. So, what does that make me think? I'm questioning How often are students being pulled out of inclusion? How often are they missing general ed content? That's, the gap is wide there. And that next column, when we look at it, and we look at our inclusion rate of 56.2, that tells me that half of our students are not in full inclusion. So how does that driver impact that gap in 8th grade? So I have real concerns about that, and I think it's something that we need to look at. The one thing I want to also say is that when I think about the new IEP that's coming out, we had our first presentation, I want to say a week ago, about the new IEP. One thing I really find that is really helpful is it's really forcing us as team members, all of us, parents, faculty members, related service providers, about having the conversation about why are we pulling students out of the general ed setting, and making sure that we're making the right decision for students, because every time we pull them out and we're trying to fill in a gap, we have to think about, are we creating another gap? So I have concerns about that, and so I always talk about that sacred time of really protecting that general ed content time and really thinking about meaningfully scheduling special ed services so students are not missing those major lessons in general education. The other thing I really wanted to point out in this area for 5 and 6, the preschool rates of that we currently have. And I know you have this pre-K data in your packet, but I'd like to highlight that only 25.4% of our pre-K students are in full inclusion based on this rate versus the state, which is 50.4. And so they're looking at us being higher than 50, that 50 mark. And 50.7 of our pre-K students are in partial inclusion. And the state is 16.1. So we have some work to do in preschool about thinking about how we're servicing those students. And I think just know that's my urgency to make some changes and recommendations around preschool is because of this data and these numbers. The good news is we don't have any findings around disproportionality of identifying students from other racial and ethnic groups for disabilities, and we are not suspending them at a higher rate. I always have a concern about, are we looking at that? Are we thinking about that when we're implementing discipline across the district? And that we did not get any points because we weren't evaluated for indicator 11, 12, and 13, as I've mentioned. The non-compliance PRS, we had 3 findings last year. And the corrective action was done, so we gained full points there. So I just am going to ask you to move to the next slide, Barry. This is how the overall determination was calculated. So you can look at the points with the weights, 1.5 for the 5-year cohort, graduation rate, you can see that there. We earned 22 out of the 34 possible points on the rubric, or 64.7%, which resulted in overall determination categorizing us in the need intervention category. So what are districts required to do if they're in the needs improvement category? So we can't use the flexibility under maintenance of effort provisions of IDEA and must budget for special ed in the 23-24 school year as least as much as the state and local funds in the aggregate per pupil as it's budgeted and spent in the last year to meet maintenance of effort. That's what MOE is. This means that as a local educational agency, we must maintain or increase the amount of state or local funds we spend for special education of children with disabilities when compared to the last year that we met maintenance of effort in the last fiscal year. So that's one requirement. The second is we're going to develop an action plan we're going to implement the plan, and we're going to progress monitor. And districts that were determined needs intervention are required to participate in technical assistance webinars. I've already started that process. We will have somebody assigned to us at Wachusett to work with us on our action plan in the implementation of our plan, and then we will submit and monitor progress towards making improvements in these categories. And the last thing is that we're required to participate in Making Money Matters, and we have to direct at least 2% of our total special ed entitlement allocation towards the targeted system improvement of performance outcomes for students with disabilities. So what does that 2% mean for this district? So our 240 grant, we have to allocate at least $36,000 in Making Money Matters to think about how we're going to make improvements. In our 262 grant, that 2% represents about $12,000. So I know that's a ton of information, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, questions from the committee? Yeah, Lily.
For developing the action plan that the district needs to make with the need intervention category, do you have a current plan for how you're going to keep parents involved and to be able to donate feedback to that process?
Yeah, I think one of the things I talked about with the new IEP, we have to really think about inclusion, and we have to really educate families, and we have to have parents really coming in and talking with us about when students need to be pulled out, where are we going to reduce gaps? We have a lot of education to do in terms of that. And I think in terms of making a plan, I think the district with families, we need to really start talking about what is the best model to implement when it comes to special education. So one of the things that I did very early on when I arrived here is we started a co-teaching initiative at the middle school level. And so the special ed teachers and the regular ed teachers have been participating in a year-long professional development and co-teaching. So now you have a content expert and a special educator working together on behalf of students. And so we're looking to promote the overall achievement. I think we could do that better in more areas in this district.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Sherry?
I think this is a much bigger issue than we can discuss in the next 15 minutes. So I would like to, for our next meeting, though, have a timeline of when we can expect to see the plan.
Okay. Happy to do that. I have not been assigned a technical assistance person from DESE as of yet, but once I do, that's when the plan and the implementation process those discussions will start.
Thank you.
Matt?
Needs intervention doesn't sound positive to me. Could we talk a little bit about what are the other classifications besides needs intervention?
The other categories?
Sure.
Is that what you're asking? Sure. So it's meets requirements, needs assistance, needs intervention, or needs substantial intervention.
Okay, so we're closer to need substantial intervention than we are to meets requirements. So
Yes.
I would ask, and I think we don't have all the time to go through this, but through the chair, through the superintendent, I think this is bigger than a new IEP process. I think this is bigger than co-teaching worked in one school. I think this is bigger than all of that. I think it's an overhaul look of how we deliver special education services for a student's journey throughout this district. And what would help me as a school committee member would be to have an understanding of what are the financial implications, what are the implications that we need for staffing. And I'm going to go back to 2 budget retreats prior to Ms. DeAngelis joining the district. There were numerous requests for additional supports for special educators. The rationale that came from administration was, I want to wait until we hire a special education administrator. To my knowledge, the majority 80% or greater of those positions has never been filled. That, to me, is a huge indicator of why we're probably in a needs intervention, is we were not listening to our audience, which were leaders of schools saying what they need, and we didn't fulfill that.
Can I respond to that? Yep. So last year was the first year. I was actually we had a budget retreat. I haven't completed my second year yet in district. Last year I did share that I had concern about special education staffing. I feel like we desperately need to have a plan to address these needs. I'm on record, I don't know, 5 to 10 meetings where I've talked about our special education results. K-8, 80% of our special education students are either partially or not meeting expectations on the MCAS. We haven't had a defined approach for a very long time in this district, and there's a great need for us to do an incredible amount of work. I'm on record saying, as much of a mess as this district was financially when I first came here, I am equally concerned about the experience of our special education students and also our high needs students, and I've called that data out repeatedly. However, I do feel like we have to have a plan. Too often in the past, we have scattershot approaches in this district, and we haven't had a defined approach to how we're going to make things better. And we do need to do that. I will call out, under Director DeAngelis, we have made some, I think, pretty great growth when she's just trying to understand the nature of the problem. We've added additional special education positions. We've added BCBA positions. We have, for the first time, we talked about co-teaching. When I came to this district and we had a former special education director, she spoke about co-teaching. We hadn't had one single PD on it. And Director DeAngelis has arranged that just this first year. We've doubled the course offerings in terms of our educational courses at the high school, the unified course offerings. I feel like there's actually been pretty substantial movement for a person who hasn't been able to develop a plan yet. She inherited this, and I know, and I can tell you right now, we feel great urgency and feel like we've called it out on more than one occasion. This is disturbing. And I didn't say it early, and I just want to go on the record. I find the bullying data very concerning, too. Yes, I think it's grossly underreported, and we have to ask the questions about why and why we can't find that information. But am I surprised? Unfortunately not. Because continually, when we've looked at things in the district, there hasn't been systems in place to address the needs of all of our students. And it's concerning to me. But I also feel like Director DeAngelis needs a little grace and time to properly work with people to develop that plan. Because a lot of the things that I see the district has failed in the past, it's because there hasn't been an aligned understanding of what needs to be done to make things better for kids. But I can assure you, I feel great urgency around a lot of these things. But I also look at what she's inherited, and not that it's okay, but, for the most part, we relied on people to cover for our special education director for over half of last year. We advertised for a position, didn't get it. And so, we didn't get any applicants for it. I commend the people who covered for us, but when you don't have that position filled, that's a major void in the district. And so I've got confidence that we're going to get this under control, but I don't want to minimize the amount of work that needs to happen here and the urgency we all feel. I'll be honest with you. We've made some obvious missteps in the last couple of months in terms of looking at our programming, and trying to promote some positive change. I think it's because we feel such great urgency around these matters. And it is a delicate balance. It's a great question about involving parents. We should be involving parents. But I think we also have to allow somebody like Director DeAngelis to look at the data and propose some changes and work with staff to propose some changes as well. Because what we're doing and have been doing in the district for at least the last decade, it's not working. It's not working.
You mentioned, thank you for your presentation. That was very helpful, disturbing, but helpful. So you mentioned the gap between students in special education and those not in special education, and you attribute it to perhaps not enough inclusion. and that certainly makes sense to me. But I also do wonder if perhaps our special education programs themselves need bolstered in terms of the amount of content or the kind of content, that they're delivering to students to try to, as one more way to address that gap.
I think there's a couple of ways to address the gap, but our teachers are content experts. So when we have content experts delivering instruction and we add a special ed teacher to that environment with their tools and their expertise, I think we would get better results. And I think we have relied, or maybe over-relied, on our very overworked paras to deliver some of the instruction. And I think that needs to come through special ed teachers and content teachers joined together with paraprofessionals supporting those environments.
Thank you.
Malia, was your hand up?
It was. I echo some of the comments that have already been made, but one of the things that I did hear that I just wanted to note, I guess, is that when you're talking about the gap, you talked about the new IEP process and how a piece of what you hope will improve some of this data is that process and being able to explain, I think you had said explain to parents and really talk with parents about when it's appropriate to pull out a student for services. And I'm sure this is not developed yet, but I just, when I hear that, I hope that the burden is not being placed entirely on our parents, and I hope it's not through a lens of we can't provide pull-out services or we can't be creative, because I know there are other creative ways besides just providing services during the school day sometimes that minimize students' need to miss gen ed classes. So I hope we are looking at all avenues to do that and not just saying, well, we can't provide X service during the school day, so you either have to miss gen ed or you don't really get the service, and this is why. I hope we are looking and keeping a broad perspective in terms of ways to deliver those services if it's something the student really needs, and find that balance, because there are creative ways. I've seen other districts do it. And I just hope we keep an open mind through this process and not just, obviously inclusion is better whenever it's possible, but I heard that line and I said, oh, if I'm a parent, that doesn't sound good to me. So I just wanted to reiterate that.
So can I clarify? I think when I talk about the new IEP, one of the things is they ask us to really think about the why we are pulling students out of general education. So really having deep conversations about why a student is being pulled out. I'm not saying we're not going to do that, but if a student requires that level of service, I would never say that. We need to individually do what every student needs. But what I would say is I want to be careful about the when we're pulling them out, because there's a lot of ways to do scheduling in a building that can avoid kids missing major content lessons. So I was a principal, I did scheduling for my building, and there was sacred time in my building, and it was really clear about when students were pulled out of special ed, when those times were available, so they weren't missing those major components of content-based instruction.
I appreciate that. I do hope that we are, also truly use an individualized approach, because particularly at our larger schools, we tend to have, or historically have tended to have, a cookie cutter approach, which says if you have an IEP, you must take this tutorial and get all your services then, instead of getting the study skills that the rest of your peers are getting, which are setting them up for academic success. And so I just those examples happen a lot in our bigger schools in particular. And so I just hope that we are mindful of individualized needs and solutions. And I trust that you will be, but I feel like I needed to state it for the record tonight. So thank you.
Okay. So I think we're going to come back to this again in the very near future. So I'd like to move us on because it's getting pretty late. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So 2 final items we were going to provide updates on tonight. One is an ECC programming update. There you go. Thank you, Barry. And so one of the things I want to share with the committee and the public is, I think we heard a lot of good feedback last time we were here in terms of the need for additional proactive communication and collaboration. And with that, Director DeAngelis and I had gotten together the day after the school committee meeting, and we actually attended the CPAC Advisory Council meeting together. And at that time, spoke to the CPAC Advisory about looking at programs, how that can be expressed, what they would hope for in terms of knowing about the process and potentially being able to offer their own feedback about when we look at programmatic changes. We also, Director DeAngelis did provide written responses that were included in the superintendent's report to some of the questions that were posed on April 8th. And then lastly, I've met with Director DeAngelis and also Principal Beth Ann Cormier of the ECC a couple times just to talk about our programming and our hopes for early childhood. There are some things that still need to be done. One of the things I had stated in the communication to school committee is that we haven't met with all of the impacted families. I think we have responded to questions from people who had questions about it, but there wasn't a proactive forum to talk to those families and hear their concerns. We heard from a parent tonight about what that would mean for their child and things that they would worry about if a change actually was implemented. I think the other thing that needs to happen still before we could really recommend a change like that is to meet with impacted staff. And I think that involves not just teachers, but all staff in a particular program, so ABAs and paraprofessionals and anybody else who might be working in those impacted classrooms. And it's because of those reasons I did not feel comfortable making a recommendation to proceed with the program changes at this time. I do, and I want to be clear, I do think there's some really good ideas behind this move. And I do think, we saw it a little bit in the intervention report, and we also heard it a little bit when you look at Director DeAngelis' answers. It is honestly an attempt to see if there are more opportunities to include these student populations, and we do have to have a better long-term plan in terms of what we're doing with early childhood programming. They're in a building that really doesn't suit their needs. There's limitations in how much the program can grow in its current place. And to be clear, I think both Director DeAngelis and myself feels like early childhood is an area that we would want to grow in the district. One of the indicators that you saw her discuss a little bit earlier is child find. I think I came from a district that serviced approximately 1,000 less students, but probably offered double, if not more, the number of preschool classrooms. And so we have to ask ourselves, what does that mean long term? What are we doing? Are we not identifying enough kids? It's a challenge, I'll be honest with you, in a regional school district, because it's not, even if we end up trying to advocate for or look at the potential for an early childhood center, it still would most likely only be in one of our towns. And one of the things with Child Fund and other opportunities, and one of the things, honestly, that we thought was a novel idea about having some satellite locations is you could have an opportunity in Rutland and Sterling to have kids have a early childhood experience, whether it be as peers or kids receiving services, and start to grow the program. Although I would want to acknowledge with everyone that I think, yes, I think the communication and the opportunity to provide feedback isn't what it should have been and what it needs to be. And so at this time, I'm not recommending that we move forward with it, but I do feel like we should continue to look at that and other possibilities and really have a comprehensive plan about what we're going to do with early childhood programming to make sure that we get the services kids need at an early age. One of my greatest frustrations, I'm going to be telling, and I feel like I've shared a few tonight, but one of them really is that we are spending money on prescriptive services far too late in a child's educational career. If we really want to have an impact on achievement in a child's experience, we should be providing those interventions and those supports as early as possible. And that begins at early childhood, and it also happens at elementary. I can't believe we are in a district that does not have interventionists at the elementary level. You just don't see it anywhere. And when we talk about where we spend our money, that's a glaring area we need to address. It's why we've been spending time trying to develop the DCAP, why we're looking so hard at MTSS, because you also shouldn't have to be on an IEP to get support when you need it. And that's the whole point behind MTSS. And so I do want to put a pause, because I do feel like we have some good ideas on the table, but I think I also hear and I agree that we have to be more collaborative and more communicative in making sure that people understand why we're promoting certain changes. And then I have also heard from people about what their concerns might be if that's a solution that we're putting forward at that time. So. Want me to talk budget? You want me to see if people have any questions?
Yeah, why don't we have questions or discussion about this? I don't see any hands up, so go ahead.
Thank you. So I also want to provide a budget update. And I apologize because we sent you some financials late today. That was on me. I forgot to include them in the report on Friday. One thing I want to start with is we are starting our town meeting schedule. They're going to begin in earnest on Monday, May 6th. We're going to have town meetings in Paxton and Sterling, just advocating that people show up and do their civic duty. These are important meetings for all of us in the school system, and we're hoping that we can provide any information that people are wondering about to support our budgets. With that, I think it's also important, and I think one of the things we aspire to do a better job with is sharing financial information both at the subcommittee level with our Business and Finance Subcommittee, but then also with the full committee. And I'm very happy and certainly commend Director Grise. She provided a report that we are hoping to provide much more frequently and with greater detail, so school committee understands where we do stand financially in any given fiscal year. And I commented earlier tonight about the job of school committee, and I think one of the hardest things is trying to build some trust with school committee and then also building some financial transparency. Those were, to me, two of the biggest issues that when I came in, people felt were lacking. And I will say for school committee, and I've said this once or twice, but I do feel like it's an important comment to make. School committee will only get the information that the district provides. And so if the school committee is getting financial reports that aren't an accurate reflection of where the district is financially, they have no way of knowing that. And that's a scary proposition. And so one of the things we've been trying to do with Chairperson Brennan in the Finance and Business Subcommittee is try to work towards providing information that will be helpful so people feel like they have reasonable confidence about where we stand financially. Because we've gone on the last 3 fiscal years, I've shared during the budget development process where we've taken almost $3 million or needed almost $3 million in excess and deficiency because budgets were being put forward that didn't meet the needs of just a basic level of the district. And I would advocate, as Member Lavoie did, that we need to continue to look at our staffing because there are needs in areas where we need to continue to add. So with all that, we provided a report in the superintendent's report, and we'll make sure it's available. I don't know what happens when we don't include it in the Friday report, but make sure the public can see it as well, of where we stand in FY24. And it is, we shared this during the budget development process. There are 3 areas that we continue to be concerned about: operations and maintenance, which traditionally, and when we advocated and school committee approved for us to have some excess and deficiency put towards the budget last year, that was one area we were over, and it's been a need for the district in that we have aging facilities that are lacking. But the other 2 areas that we looked at were special education out-of-district tuitions and then also transportation. And these were the same areas that caused us to need to have a realignment last year. But as we discussed during the budget process, we didn't know of those issues until June when we had already developed the budget for this year. And so the fact that these are the areas that are areas of concern again, they're not particularly surprising. I do feel like, and I commend again Director Grise for developing a budget that I think finally captures what our true out-of-district special education costs are, and hopefully with that budget passing, we won't find ourselves in this situation next year. When you look at the report, it looks like we're out of whack by several $1 million, but if you really look at it, there are several adjustments that have not happened yet, that will happen, that will bring us to, it's almost a $500,000 expected shortfall, I'd say. And when I say shortfall, what I mean is the traditional balancing of grants and other, and typical revolvings, you know, which you would expect to apply every year. There would still be about $500,000 that we would need to address at the end of the year. There are additional funds available to balance that. And so what isn't on the sheet that we gave to school committee today and would be publicly available is we still have about $900,000 in school choice revolving fund, and we're anticipating that we'll get a circuit breaker reserve and an extraordinary relief amount of approximately $1 million. And so every indicator we have from the state is that we're going to be eligible for that, and that's been communicated. However, we have not received that money. So we'd have about $1.9 million in available revolving funds to address that $500,000. And then if an extraordinary circumstance came into play, we also have about $1.2 million in excess and deficiency. That decision, you know, we brought it forward to the Business and Finance Subcommittee last Thursday. Obviously, the decision on whether or not to touch excess and deficiency, that's a school committee decision. I'd also want to say, and I believe I've mentioned this during earlier budget meetings, that DESE had reached out to us and said that if we were going to recommend a reconciliation by using excess and deficiency, we had to be mindful of giving the towns appropriate time, that if they wanted to call a town meeting to challenge its use, that we do so. So our timing to do that would have to be in the next month at a minimum. And so I just want to share all that, but really just tell people this is where we are. I can say it's not unexpected. You know, we've talked about this for a lot of the year. I do feel like we have sufficient revolving funds to cover it, if that's the recommendation and what we ultimately go forward with, working with the Business and Finance Subcommittee. What I would share about a couple things, though, is that we do want to continue to build healthy balances in our revolving funds in just such a case, and we want to try to continue to build up our excess and deficiency. Our excess and deficiency amount is just a little bit over 1%, and we are able to keep up to 5% in that particular fund. Circuit breaker reserve and extraordinary relief, although it's perfectly legal to tap into those revolving accounts, we are in a process and have been for several years at this point where we're tapping into those accounts a year early. And so for a lot of districts, although this year I would say some districts have moved away from that practice, you're using, you get circuit breaker and you're actually using it in the second year. And the reason why districts do that is because you're able to plan for the exact amount that you have available. If you looked at how we developed the budget this year, we're developing it on anticipated revenues for circuit breaker. I feel like we've budgeted a safe amount, but again, it's not the best financial practice that we want to have in the district, and we want to try to move away from it. You know, I think, and honestly, I give Director Grise, you know, she deserves far and away the most credit around this and the work they've done in the business department. But hopefully, and I think, based on the feedback we've gotten from the towns with their budget presentations, that they feel like there's an increased amount of transparency about where we're spending money and why we're budgeting what we're budgeting. But clearly, there's a lot more work to be done, and some of it is providing these reports to people on a more consistent basis. We also talked during the last Business and Finance Subcommittee about making sure we're doing transfers on a regular basis and being more transparent about that. But this is a step we're trying to take to make sure people understand, A, where we stand, and then our plan to rectify things at the end of the year, but continuing to build some trust, hopefully, with our town partners. I don't know if there's any questions about that.
Any questions about the budget? Linda, and then Lauren.
Just a quick one. My recollection, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that part of the reason for the shortfall is that private special ed schools increased their costs or their charges by about 14%.
Yeah, so 2 years ago, or last year, the state approved an increase of 14% for the tuitions, and then this year, I believe it's 5 point something, I believe, or maybe it's 4, I could be off on the number. Didn't help, definitely. And, I think the piece we have to own is that we also, I think it was one of the line items or appropriations that was traditionally used to adjust the final budget number. And, it's a practice we need to tighten up on. And so, but that definitely was a complicating factor, but I have to say, even without those increases, I don't think it would be as large as it is right now, but we still need the budget better. But yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
Lauren.
I don't know if I'm missing something, but I believe we usually have the draft budget book on the website, but I don't see it on the budget and finance tab. So just, I think for transparency and for the public, having maybe the presentations and the
No, absolutely.
to a book and,
No, thank you.
Posted.
Yep.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Other questions? Ready to move on? Yes, we are. All right, so the next thing on the agenda is to accept the annual evaluation of the superintendent of schools. We need a motion first, right?
Yes.
Do I read it? All right. I would accept a motion to accept the annual evaluation of the superintendent of schools.
So moved. Second.
Lauren and Linda seconded it. All right, so traditionally I read this. All right, so this memo summarizes the ratings and comments provided by 13 of the 19 members of the Wachusett Regional School Committee for your 2024 end-of-cycle summative evaluation report. Please note that while this document summarizes the responses, it does not fully reflect every comment. All of these observations bring value, and I urge you to carefully consider each individual evaluation as well. So on Standard 1, Educational Leadership, the superintendent received a rating of exemplary from 4 members, proficient from 7 members, needs improvement from 2 members, unsatisfactory from 0. Summary of commendations and recommendations. Dr. Riley is commended for using a collaborative team approach to make curriculum and instructional improvements. Members noted that Dr. Riley demonstrates a commitment to processes that improve student learning and takes steps to ensure that all students have access to high-quality instruction. Several members pointed to successful implementation of new curriculum, including appropriate measures and guidance to support teachers. Furthermore, the administration is recognized for analyzing current curricula and instructional practices, setting new standards, and implementing new practices throughout the district to improve student instruction. For example, Dr. Riley assessed the need for and hired a curriculum director, responded to new evidence regarding the ELA curriculum, and made the bold decision to accelerate the replacement process of the ELA curriculum. Members also commended Dr. Riley for implementing processes to assess and monitor progress for struggling students and establishing a process that uses data to help drive instruction and improve student learning. In particular, members noted the success of learning walks that enable teachers to see peer practices and self-reflect. While there were several successes to highlight this year, the committee would like the superintendent to continue to pursue consistency across the district in both curriculum and instructional techniques. The superintendent should provide further evidence that individual schools are implementing new programs and curriculum with fidelity. In addition, he should provide evidence that all students are benefiting from new curriculum and instructional methods to ensure that the district is meeting the needs of all students. The committee would like Dr. Riley to develop and implement a plan to address the variety of significant needs identified in the DESE district-wide instructional observation report, and particularly with our special education students, as well as to continue increasing the inclusion options for our high-need students. Finally, the committee would like Dr. Riley to develop and implement a plan focused on the retention of students who might be seeking alternative educational opportunities out of district. Standard 2, Management and Operations. Rating exemplary, 1 member, 10 proficient, 2 needs improvement. Summary commendations and recommendations. Dr. Riley is highly commended for successes with the budget process and with management of new staff. Members stated that Dr. Riley has implemented a good program for new hire recruitment, hiring, and staff development. Members also provided positive feedback in regards to the budget while emphasizing that the district is still addressing issues inherited from the previous administration. Both of these areas will continue to need the same high level of attention and effort for the foreseeable future. The committee recommends that Dr. Riley present monthly budget reports to the full committee going forward and continue to pursue alternative funding sources. In addition, the district should make efforts to ensure teacher retention, improve educator development, and implement inclusive recruiting practices. On Standard 3, family and community engagement. Exemplary 0, proficient 5, needs improvement 7, unsatisfactory 1. Summary of accommodations and recommendations. Although some members rated Dr. Riley proficient on this indicator, the majority of members felt that this area needs improvement. Those that rated him proficient noted multiple issues that impeded success in this area. These included inherited issues such as the financial crisis and a lack of both staff and systems for effective communication with stakeholders. Members also noted the size of the district as a challenge to effective communication. Two main areas of concern were centered around changes to the ECC program and the proposed school-within-a-school model with Summit Academy. Many members noted that lack of stakeholder input in the decision-making process was a major failure, and that new processes need to be put into place to avoid similar situations in the future. Members identified lack of communication as a major reason for the negative community response. Many members also noted that the school committee lacked information about these initiatives and the transparency needed to be improved. Finally, some members mentioned that CPAC has flagged a similar lack of stakeholder input and poor communication in other situations regarding special education. Members noted Dr. Riley's meetings with individual families as progress, but generally believe that family engagement and two-way communication between stakeholders and the administration must be improved. The committee recommends that the district establish multiple avenues to solicit feedback going forward. While there are clear areas needing improvement, members also identified areas of success this year, such as stakeholder meetings with parent groups from Dawson and Houghton-Choxett, as well as parent involvement in the hiring of principals. The strategic planning process was also called out as an example of stakeholder involvement at its best. The Peak newsletter, meetings with town officials, and transparency around the budget were regarded by many as examples of improvement. Recommendations for further improvement include improvements to the district website, more working groups, community forums, and the implementation of the draft communication plan. Finally, many members appreciated Dr. Riley's acknowledgement of mistakes that were made, as well as his plan to avoid those mistakes in the future, and expressed confidence in his ability to improve. Many members noted that the draft communication plan provided by Dr. Riley looks promising, and they look forward to its implementation. Standard 4, professional culture. Exemplary 3, proficient 10, needs improvement 0, unsatisfactory 0. All members rated Dr. Riley as either proficient or exemplary on Standard 4. Dr. Riley received praise for nurturing a culture of reflection and continuous learning, and for engaging multiple stakeholders in the strategic planning process. Members commend Dr. Riley's commitment to continuous improvement and a shared vision. This was exemplified through the strategic planning process, development of professional learning communities, and implementation of structured meetings and classroom walkthroughs to support teachers and align schools. Members acknowledge and appreciate Dr. Riley's leadership in changing the professional culture of the district. However, members also noted areas for improvement. These included a desire for more data from the perspective of stakeholders and a better understanding of the vision for special education. Members also called for a comprehensive and consistent system of change that includes two-way communication with all stakeholders and increased transparency. Progress towards goals. District 1, district improvement. Develop foundational blueprint to improve district systems, operations, and vision. Exceeded 7, met 5, significant progress 0, some progress 1, did not meet 0. The evaluations of Dr. Riley under Goal 1 are almost all positive. The committee commends Dr. Riley for rectifying financial and business department deficiencies, fostering communications among member towns, and completing the strategic planning process. His support for Director Grisey in updating all financial reporting is seen as an amazing accomplishment. Dr. Riley is also commended for his communication with town administrators. Members recognize Dr. Riley's significant accomplishment in meeting almost all of the detailed criteria listed under this goal. Members acknowledge Dr. Riley's implementation of new curricula and training for teachers and administrators as a significant success. His emphasis on data-informed decision-making and the use of Panorama is also appreciated. Members commended Dr. Riley's leadership in crisis management, in hiring a new administrative team, and in addressing pressing issues. Dr. Riley's strength in building a strong team of administrators and setting goals is recognized. While the feedback on Goal 1 was overwhelmingly positive, moving forward, some members would appreciate more information on addressing the restructuring of positions and responsibilities within the district. Goal number 2, district improvement. Continue the selection and implementation of high-quality instructional materials, focus on the implementation of the revised DCAP, and to support best instructional practices through the use of walkthroughs throughout the district. Exceeded 1, met 9, significant progress 2, some progress 1, did not meet 0. Members noted that most of the criteria for this goal were met, other than the selection of an SEL curriculum, which was deferred for good reasons. Training around DCAP and MTSS, selection of high-quality instructional materials, especially in early literacy, the use of PLTs, and development of the strategic plan were noted as examples of the superintendent's strong work on this goal. Goal number 3, professional practice, relationships and culture. Continue to build a positive culture and develop a system of proactive communication in the district. Exceeded 0, met 6, significant progress 5, some progress 1, did not meet 1. Feedback on Goal 3 was largely distributed between significant progress and met, with some lower ratings. Dr. Riley is commended for enhanced outward communication and an increased presence in schools through efforts like peak performer and building walks. Members also noted improvements in district culture and enhanced relationships with member towns. The committee recommends that Dr. Riley ensure district-level changes have direct impacts on student services. In addition, more work is needed to ensure all impacted stakeholders are informed and given opportunities to provide input and feedback. Dr. Riley should develop a plan to create a more centralized mechanism for communications. Impact on student learning. High, 8, moderate, 4, low, 1. In the overall summative rating, exemplary 1, proficient 11, needs improvement 1. Dr. Riley received an overall rating of proficient from the majority of members, and most addressed his impact on student learning as high. Dr. Riley received praise for the progress he and his administration have made to move the district forward this year, while many members also acknowledged that there is much work left to be done. Members praised Dr. Riley as a strong leader who has navigated difficult situations and made positive changes, pointing to his work hiring a strong team, improving administrative systems, and developing a well-built budget. They also pointed to his success changing the culture of the district for the better, in particular by keeping focus on what is best for students. Members also pointed out that despite improvements, more needs to be done. Members called out communication and transparency as major areas that need improvement. Specific suggestions included seeking more stakeholder input, fostering relationships through better communication, and communicating a clear vision of what the administration is doing to improve going forward. Finally, the committee recommends that the district take significant steps to address the needs of all students, especially our high-need students. That's the end of the report. Any comments or questions before we vote?
I just have one comment, question. In 8 years of being on the school committee, I don't recall, since we've gone to an electronic evaluation, so few respondents. And that's concerning to me, that only 68% of school committee members. I have theories as to why that was the case. I think there were processes that we've done in the past with going through perhaps MASC's evaluation guide, going through what that looks like. I also think that having strict deadlines around April break, we recognized those in the past and mitigated some of that. And I would strongly encourage the next body to look at ways to get back to when we had 22 members completing an evaluation, or 21 out of 22, because I think it's a very it's a disservice to the superintendent to not have those comments or that feedback in place. I'll just leave it at that.
Lauren?
I have to echo the comment about the 13 of the 19. We have certain charges that we have here, budget, policy, hiring and evaluation of the superintendent, and we hear the word accountability a lot, and this is one of the main ways for accountability for the superintendent, so I just really urge people. The other thing, I was on the subcommittee, the other thing is, if you're gonna put, you know, I just appreciate comments, especially when people put very low ratings. Or lower ratings than anyone else. I just would appreciate some, like in future, just appreciate some description on that. So then it could go into the evaluation since it's a very low rating.
All right, are we ready to vote on the motion to accept the annual evaluation of the superintendent? All right, Randy?
Member Lorway,
Lorway, yes.
Member Kaminsky,
Kaminsky, no.
Member Salmon Garrett,
Salmon Garrett, yes.
Member Otmar,
Otmar, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum,
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Vice Chair Haber,
Haber, yes.
Member Winters,
Winters, yes.
Member Gavardin,
Gordon, yes.
Member Silva, Member Longbeliel,
Longbeliel, yes.
Member Brennan,
Brennan, yes.
Member Gustafson,
Gustafson, yes.
Member Valentine,
Valentine, yes.
Member Woodland,
Woodland, yes.
Member Poole,
Poole, yes.
Member Beardmore,
Beardmore, yes.
Member Lavoy,
Lavoy, no.
Member Silva,
She did type it.
She said Sylvia, yes,
Yes.
on the,
You need to speak. You need to speak at the meeting.
and Chair Runstrom.
Chair abstains. The motion passes. All right, moving on. I would accept a motion to ratify the contract between the Wachusett Regional School District and AFSCME Council 93, Local 2885 clerical employees.
So moved.
second.
Moved by Jana and Sherry seconded it. No discussion on this. We discussed it in executive session, so we can move to a roll call vote.
Member Otmar,
Otmar, yes.
Member Valentine,
Valentine, yes.
Member Silva, Member Haber,
Haber, yes.
Member Gavardin,
Gordon, yes.
Member Lavoy,
Lavoy, no.
Member Longbeliel,
Longbeliel, yes.
Member Woodland,
Woodland, yes.
Member Winters,
Winters, yes.
Member Poole,
Poole, yes.
Member Beardmore,
Beardmore, yes.
Member Lorway,
Lorway, yes.
Member Salmon Garrett,
Salmon Garrett, yes.
Member Gustafson,
Gustafson, yes.
Member Brennan,
Brennan, yes.
Member Kaminsky,
Kaminsky, no.
Member Kirschenbaum,
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Chair Runstrom.
The chair votes yes, the motion passes. I would accept a motion to ratify the contract between the Wachusett Regional School District and AFSCME Council 93, Local 2885 custodial employees.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Sherry, seconded by Kumara. We'll move directly to a vote as soon as you're ready.
Member Kirschenbaum,
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Longbeliel,
Longbeliel, yes.
Member Winters,
Yes.
Member Lorway,
Lorway, yes.
Member Kaminsky,
Kaminsky, no.
Member Otmar,
Otmar, yes.
Member Woodland,
Woodland, yes.
Member Silva, Member Gustafson,
Gustafson, yes.
Member Poole,
Poole, yes.
Member Valentine,
Valentine, yes.
Member Beardmore,
Beardmore, yes.
Member Salmon Garrett,
Salmon Garrett, yes.
Member Gavardin,
Gordon, yes.
Member Lavoy,
Lavoy, no.
Vice Chair Haber,
Haber, yes.
Member Brennan,
Brennan, yes.
Chair Runstrom,
The chair votes yes, and the motion passes. I would accept a motion to approve donations to Thomas Prince School in the amount of $1,000 and $500.
So moved.
Second.
Sherry and Kumara? Any discussion?
What are those funds going to be used for?
Do we know what those funds are going to be used for?
Yeah, it was in the,
It's in the superintendent's
attached in
report.
the superintendent's report. Trying to think off the top of my head. I believe it was for a garden. They were being
Pollination.
donations for,
Pollination garden.
yeah, pollinator garden.
Pollinator garden?
I believe so. I can look it up for you, though.
Member Kaminsky.
Who's the donation from?
So the
Donations.
Yeah, I believe it was the Princeton, like, Flower and Garden Club.
The Wachusett Garden Club.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Ready to vote? Nope.
Do these exist at other schools in the district?
The pollinator gardens, not that I'm aware of. Although I think Davis Hill might have a garden out back, but I'm not 100% sure.
Is there an opportunity to take this donation and expand it beyond one school to throughout the district?
Not that I'm aware of.
I saw Malia and then Kumara.
Am I allowed to provide further information that might answer a question?
You've been recognized. You may say whatever
Yes,
you want.
okay. I was going to say first, some of this information was in our packets, which we received several days ago. But second, several of our schools have received donations for school gardens in the past. We've actually approved them as a body before. We do one in Holden, at least one in Holden every year from the Garden Club for one or two of our elementary schools. And I believe we've done them in a couple of other towns since I've been on the committee as well. So I mean, certainly valuable to ask questions, but I mean, I don't know if someone wants to donate something to the school, it's our role to accept it and approve it. So, but I did want to let you know they do exist at some schools. I know of 4 or 5 of our schools that have some kind of gardening program, but we have approved such things in the past.
Kumara?
So, just from reading the link that they had proposed, while I'm not against the idea of sharing it across the district, I mean, this one seemed particularly special as it was being put forth in memoriam. I don't know if I'm allowed to say her name, but by Miss, forgive me, I can't say it, but by Miss Lisa Beaufray. So that, you know, I love the idea. I just worry about that problem. That let's just leave it there. Yeah.
Linda?
So it's a very basic tenet about donations that if it's for a specific reason, we cannot go willy-nilly and decide it goes other places. It's basic.
Yeah,
So.
I think it might even be a law somewhere. But
I mean, I don't think there's any harm in asking the question. Like,
I don't know that,
yes. George?
So first of all, I protest the notion that it's the job of the committee to rubber stamp anything. Unfortunately, this is what this committee is doing a lot, but this is wrong. And second, I believe that unfortunately, this would actually violate the principle of equity across the district. So I don't think it would be the right thing to do.
To move the question.
Question's been moved. Is anyone, do we have to second that?
No.
All right.
Yes,
I think we
second.
do.
Yes, second, but not debated.
Yes, that's what I believe. Yes, seconded by Lauren. Okay. The question's been moved and seconded. We're going to a vote.
I did.
Sherry moved the question.
Lauren.
Lauren seconded it. I believe we need to vote on moving the question, if I remember correctly, my Robert's rules. So we're going to
Could
move
people
directly
use
to
their
a vote on moving
microphones,
the
please?
question. I'm sorry, what?
She'd like to use the microphones.
Oh, you didn't hear me? I'm sorry. We have a motion to move the question that we need to vote on. Sherry, would...
Member Beardmore?
Beardmore, yes.
Member Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Member Salmon Garrett?
Salmon Garrett, yes.
Member Poole?
Poole, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Lavoy?
Lavoy abstained.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Kaminsky?
Kaminsky abstained.
Member Gavarden?
Gavarden, yes.
Member Silva?
Silva, yes.
Member Valentine?
Valentine, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Gustafson, yes.
Member Brennan?
Brennan, yes.
Member Longaleo?
Longley, yes.
Member Winters?
Winters abstained.
Vice Chair Haber?
Haber, yes.
Member Lorway?
Lorway, yes.
Chair Renstrom?
The chair abstains. The motion passes. We're moving directly to a vote on the motion, so we have to take another roll call as soon as you're ready, Randy.
Sure. Member Beardmore?
Beardmore, yes.
Member Valentine?
Valentine, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Poole?
Oh, yes.
Member Kaminsky?
Kaminsky abstain.
Member Lorway?
Lorway, yes.
Member Brennan?
Brennan, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Gustafson, yes.
Member Lavoy?
Lavoy abstain.
Member Longbelio?
Longbelio, yes.
Member Salmon Garrett?
Salmon Garrett, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Gavarden?
Gavarden, yes.
Member Silva?
Silva, yes.
Member Winters?
Winters abstain.
Member Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Vice Chair Haber?
Haber, yes.
Chair Renstrom?
Chair abstains. The motion passes. I would accept a motion to authorize the Business and Finance Subcommittee to act as hiring committee for the position of treasurer and assistant treasurer.
So moved.
Second.
Sherry and Lauren. Any discussion? Yes, Matt.
Is it still in our bylaws that a member of the school committee can serve as either role?
Yes, I was actually reading the bylaws. It's a little unclear, but yes, I believe a member of the committee could serve as treasurer.
So I feel that this motion is unnecessary, as that would fall under the purview of the full school committee, not a subcommittee.
Okay. Sherry.
Simply as interviews are done in a more timely fashion, I would recommend that the Business and Finance Committee take on this role.
Jana.
Yeah, with the election coming up and the timing needed and signatures being need to be moved over, I would be afraid to not be left with a treasurer and an assistant treasurer in order to get business done in the district. So that is a concern with full school committee.
Further discussion? Seeing none, let's move to a roll call vote.
Member Beardmore?
Beardmore, yes.
Member Lavoy?
Lavoy, no.
Member Winters?
Winters abstain.
Vice Chair Haber?
Haber, yes.
Member Valentine?
Valentine, yes.
Member Gavarden?
Gavarden, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Kaminsky?
Kaminsky abstain.
Member Longbelio?
Longbelio, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Poole?
Oh, yes.
Member Lorway?
Lorway, yes.
Member Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Gustafson, yes.
Member Brennan?
Brennan, yes.
Member Silva?
Silva, yes.
Member Salmon Garrett?
Salmon Garrett, yes.
And Chair Renstrom?
Chair abstains and the motion passes. All right. Moving on to unfinished business. We actually had several agenda items from the April 8th meeting that we did not get to before the meeting adjourned. These items can be considered under unfinished business. I would like to take up the second readings of policies that were previously approved by this committee to ensure we finish those tonight under unfinished business. So I would accept a motion to amend policy 1111, policy relating to school committee operations, school committee member responsibility, second reading, waiving the reading. This was from the March meeting that we approved it the first time.
So moved. Second.
Seconded by Jana. Any discussion? We are ready to vote.
Member Salmon Garrett?
Salmon Garrett, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Gustafson, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Brennan, yes.
Member Poole?
Oh, yes.
Member Silva?
Silva, abstain.
Member Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Member Lavoy?
Lavoy, abstain.
Member Beardmore?
Beardmore, yes.
Member Gavarden?
Gavarden, yes.
Member Longbelio?
Longbelio, yes.
Vice Chair Haber?
Haber, yes.
Member Lorway?
She stepped out.
Walked out.
Member Valentine?
Valentine, yes.
Member Winters?
Winters abstain.
Member Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Kaminsky?
Kaminsky, no.
And Chair Renstrom?
The chair abstains. The motion passes. I would accept a motion to amend policy 1160, policy relating to school committee operations, school committee member ethics, second reading, waiving the reading.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded by Jana. Sherry moved it. This was also from the March meeting. It was first passed. Any discussion? Member Kaminsky.
1 second. Yeah, so it has, well, some useful things, but also it talks about things that I don't see as relevant. For example, recognize that all actions of school committee are binding and member cannot blah, 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 and also, come on, so basically saying that members have to support the decisions of the committee. I do not understand how this can or cannot be true. I mean, the decisions made by the committee is essentially mandating something from the administration, requiring something from the administration, and not see how an individual member can either support or not support it after the decision has been made. So it seems to be pretty meaningless in a sense.
Do you have anyone else? Any other comments?
It's part of our training. It's part of MGL. It's part of being on a committee. When a committee votes, you have to uphold the will of the committee after a vote has been taken. Because an individual member does not have a role outside of the committee itself. So when a committee has voted on a matter, then we as committee members need to uphold the will of the committee on voted matters. That's what that's about. After it's been voted on, the committee has spoken, and that is a decision of the committee. An individual committee member does not have a role outside of the committee, not in terms of decision-making.
But that is, George, yeah, that is obvious. I mean, yeah, the only place where we act as committee members are here. So really, I do not understand how you can either support or not support it once it's done.
Sherry.
One place a committee member can support or not support is in negotiations.
Any further comments? One more time, George. That's your 2 times. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
No, go ahead. I recognized you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think this is wrong because basically, again, this reduces the role of the committee member to being a rubber stamp. And this goes contrary to the fact that every committee member has been elected by his or her town. And essentially, each committee member is serving the town and not the committee as such. Thank you.
No.
Malia?
Sorry, I just lost what I was going to say. I was going to say that, yes, the body in these meetings are where we are allowed to deliberate and state our individual thoughts and opinions in deliberations. However, once that a decision is made, a vote is taken of the committee, whether we agree with it or not, the body has spoken and we have no individual authority because we are representing the body at that point. We can represent ourselves and our constituents in our deliberations, but once the body takes a vote of the majority for whatever majority is required for any particular action, then we are by law required to uphold it.
Member LaVoy.
I would love to see this motion extend to people's Facebook profiles who I would consider speak on behalf of the body outside of a meeting all the time.
Any further discussion? Move to a vote.
Vice Chair Haber.
Haber, yes.
Member Long-Beal.
Long-Beal, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum.
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Lorway.
Lorway, yes.
Member Otmar.
Marios.
Member Gustafson.
Yes.
Member Poole.
Poole, yes.
Member Valentine. Member Brennan.
Brennan, yes.
Member Beardmore.
Beardmore, yes.
Member Silva.
Silva, yes.
Member Winters.
Winters abstained.
Member Gavardin.
Gavardin, yes.
Member LaVoy.
LaVoy, yes.
Member Kaminsky.
Kaminsky, no.
Member Salmon Garrett.
Salmon Garrett, yes.
Member Woodland.
Woodland, yes.
Member Valentine. And Chair Runstrom.
Chair abstains and the motion passes. I would accept a motion to amend policy 6611, policy relating to pupil services, student immunizations, second reading, waiving the reading.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Linda Woodland. Any discussion? This was from the March meeting as well.
I just have a question. On the first page, letter D, the parent guardian provides written documentation from a medical provider that the student is immune as defined by natural immunity or positive titer. And that would be, they would be allowed to remain in school if they provide that. Is that consistent with state law?
This came out of the diversity subcommittee. Can anyone
Yeah.
answer that question?
I am just pulling up my notes right now, but yes, I believe everything in this policy is consistent with state law. It was vetted by our attorney for that and to make sure that it was in alignment with language and current law. That's actually why we had to update it.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? We're ready to vote?
Member Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Member Lorway?
Lorway, yes.
Member Poole?
Poole, yes.
Member Valentine?
Valentine, yes.
Member Silva? Member Longbelio?
Longbello, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Govardin?
Govardin, yes.
Member Kaminsky?
Kaminsky abstain.
Member Salmon Garrett?
Salmon Garrett, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Gustafson, yes.
Member Brennan?
Brennan, yes.
Member Beardmore?
Beardmore, yes.
Vice Chair Haber?
Haber, yes.
Member Winters?
Winters abstain.
Member Silva?
Silva, abstain.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Lavoy?
Lavoy, yes.
And Chair Renstrom.
Chair abstains and the motion passes. Moving on to Secretary's report. We have a consent agenda tonight consisting of the following items. Approval of the special meeting minutes of March 7th, approval of the regular session minutes of March 12th, approval of executive session minutes of March 12th, and approval of regular session minutes of April 8th. Would anyone like to have any of these items removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
By Sherry and Jana, seconded by Jana. No discussion, so we'll move directly to a vote.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Govardin?
Govardin, yes.
Member Silva?
Silva, abstain.
Member Lorway?
Lorway, yes.
Member Valentine?
Valentine, yes.
Member Lavoy?
Lavoy, yes.
Member Poole?
Poole, yes.
Vice Chair Haber?
Haber, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Gustafson, yes.
Member Winters?
Winters, yes.
Member Beardmore?
Beardmore, yes.
Member Salmon Garrett?
Salmon Garrett, yes.
Member Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Member Longbelio?
Longbello, yes.
Member Brennan?
Brennan, yes.
Member Kaminsky?
Kaminsky abstain.
Member Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
And Chair Renstrom.
Chair abstains and the motion passes. Moving on to committee business. I would accept a motion to grant naming rights to the Houghton School Library in recognition of Tony Cipro, in recognition of outstanding service to the Wachusett Regional School District through his 25-year career in Sterling.
So moved.
Sherry?
Second.
Who seconded? I didn't hear.
Dana.
Dana seconded. Any discussion on this motion? I should start by saying we did request any community input. We didn't receive any community input. The letter recommending this change was in your packets this time. Any further discussion? Oh, yep, go ahead.
So we received a letter from one individual, I believe, asking for this to be named. Is that a fair?
I received a letter from one individual. My understanding is they've talked to other school committee members. They've talked to the select board in Sterling, who was in support, and the community is generally in support.
We received one official letter from one individual. Is that a fair statement?
That is correct.
Okay. I'll state my deliberating opinion. I'm going to be against this motion for the mere fact that it is just one person, and I would encourage that person to get more formalized feedback. It's really tough for me to think about naming something when we haven't heard any feedback, positive or indifferent. In the last few years around this country, people have removed statues of individuals, and I'm not about to put a name of somebody and my reputation on the line based upon one person's letter.
Okay. Any further discussion? Sherry?
I don't have the letter in front of me, but if I recall, it said with the agreement or the support of the staff of the school. I could be wrong. That was my understanding.
Do you want to read it? I have it too. Oh, Jamie, go ahead.
I'll just add the letter came from one of the kindergarten teachers that has also heard from community members and other staff at Houghton.
Any further comments? I'll just add that we did discuss it, and there'll be no district funds used as part of this. It'll be private fundraising for any plaques or anything. Are we ready to vote? Randy?
Mr. Haber?
Haber, yes.
Member Gavarden?
Gavarden, yes.
Member Brennan?
Brennan, yes.
Member Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Member Sam Garrett?
She stepped out.
Member Gustafson?
Gustafson abstain.
Member Valentine?
Valentine, yes.
Member Beardmore?
Beardmore, yes.
Member Poole?
Poole abstain.
I'm sorry?
Abstain.
Abstain. Member Lorway?
Lorway, abstain.
Member Kaminsky?
Kaminsky, abstain.
Member Longbeliel?
Longwheel, yes.
Member Lavoy?
Lavoy, abstain.
Member Winters?
Winters, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, abstain.
Member Silva?
Silva abstain.
And Chair Rodstrom.
Chair abstains. Motion passes. All right. I would accept a motion to require that the committee perform a review of special education programming and the choice of schools that host district-wide programs as described in Section 11.5 of the Wachusett Regional School District Agreement prior to authorizing administration to make any changes to the current locations of district-wide programs. Furthermore, to instruct administration to prepare data for such review, including items such as graduation rates by program, stakeholder feedback, from parents, guardians, students, faculty, and town officials, daily schedule and curriculum of each program, opportunities for inclusion, accessibility of general education classes in the least restrictive environment, and an analysis of the impact of programs away from the home community on social and emotional well-being.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Matt, seconded by Linda. Any discussion? Matt, would you like to start? Yep.
I'll speak to this motion. I appreciate the opportunity to put this motion on the agenda. This, in our last meeting, we heard a tremendous amount of feedback from the community on proposed moves. I think Dr. Riley, this supports a lot of what you put in your presentation tonight in terms of not ready to make that recommendation, and its desire is to really get a clear picture for this committee. And the basis for this is around the regional agreement. So the regional agreement that we have requires the school committee to provide an annual evaluation of these programs. So it is in our duty to do that. I think that with doing that, it would give administration more direction and clarity in terms of areas of improvement, opportunity, et cetera.
Yep. Carl.
Through the chair, I'd like to ask Member Lavoy, did you have times that you were looking for this that we could add? Like any deadlines or?
I did not have deadlines associated with this.
Okay.
Dana, and then...
Actually, Lauren was first.
Okay, Lauren, then Dana.
That's just kind of my only concern, too. I feel like we've given them a lot that they need to do in the next, and I don't want them to feel like it all has to be next month. So we just asked a lot of administration tonight for a lot of reports and things, so that's all.
Dana?
Yes, we have asked administration for a lot of reports and stuff tonight. I understand the need for this motion. Very I really do. But I don't think that this will result in clarity. There's a lot here that I'm not convinced directly impacts what will need to be done. I personally would probably accept an edited version. For instance, do we need to have in there, and please convince me if we do, please convince me we need to know graduation rates by program. That's a lot of data to look up and a lot of data for us to look through as committee members, and I'd like us to be able to suggest what would be the most useful to us and to the administration in order to make changes to the locations of programs, et cetera.
Okay. I think Malia, and then Carl, and then Lindsay. Well, Malia first?
Yeah,
And then Carl, and then you can
yes,
come-
I can see you. Can you hear me?
I can.
All right. So, while we've been talking about, in general terms, and trying to discuss reviews of our special education program for as long as I've been on the committee. There have been requests for an outside review of our special education programs with exactly this kind of data. And the prior administration was not so receptive. I think my concern, I have several concerns with this. Well, I do think that this is important and essential. I think there's a difference between the term review, which is noted in our agreement, and the word evaluation, which has been used by some people this evening and is really more of what all of this data is looking for. I think review to me implies, I mean, it's not really specific, but to me, review implies we know where our programs are, we're discussing what they're providing, and we are being consulted about any discussion regarding the moves of those programs, or at least they're coming to us. So I think review is very different than evaluation. I am concerned by the amount of information in this because it's not clear from this what our objective is. This is a lot of data. This is the kind of data that would show up in that comprehensive program review that has been requested for a number of years by an outside party, which, you know, obviously is a financial impact that we may or may not be able to afford. Honestly, we can't afford, which is why we haven't done it. But I think that's an important distinction because I guess as a school committee member, I think we can look at this information and we should certainly have this information, but what is the desired outcome? What decision are we being asked to make as a result of this? I also am concerned that it is really a lot of data and a burden to put on our administration right now when they are working on several very specific things. Again, I am not opposed to us getting this information. I am not opposed to a review of special education or an evaluation, really, which like a comprehensive program review. That's different than our school committee reviewing what programming exists and the schools that they are housed in. I think this is a much more detailed review than how I read what's in the regional agreement. So I'm not saying we shouldn't do this kind of review, but I question what the goals are, what the timeline is, and is the school committee the right person to, while we should have this data, are we the right people to be doing an in-depth analysis of this kind of data? Or is it something that a third party should be doing and providing to us, and then we can figure out what action together needs to be taken from that? So those are some of my concerns. I cannot stress enough that I don't think this is, I'm not opposed to us having this, and that this kind of evaluation is desperately needed, as we've heard tonight, but I'm not sure this is the best way to go about it.
Point of information.
Point of information.
Can I just ask for clarification? The way I read this motion, it's specifically dealing with the discussion of the ECC moving to other schools, whereas it seems other members seem to think that this motion is about all programs in the district over all grades. And I can definitely support it from the ECC perspective, but I think that otherwise it might be overwhelming right now. So if it can just be clarified what the motion is directed towards.
So the one thing that I'll say is that the regional agreement does say we're supposed to do an annual review. And Matt, if you'd like to speak to your motivation.
Yeah, and the point of it is, and I'll give a little bit of clarity. Some of the concerns that we heard were if the ECC program were moved, these kids would be pigeonholed into a program. So there are programs such as the ABA program, the developmental program. It would really be nice to see how many kids started in a development program and actually graduated, or were they pigeonholed in a developmental program where they never had access to graduation? Because for the edification of the body and the public, kids in a developmental program typically in middle school and high school do not have an opportunity to get a high school diploma at this high school. That is an important data statistic for a school committee to think about program crossing a district-wide. That if you're putting a child in a program at ECC, what are their opportunities to move along the course of and access a curriculum so they can have an equal opportunity for graduation? So yes, there are a lot of elements in here. To other members' point, there are outside agencies that do this. We have a policy that we could decide to pass this, and then we have a policy that says we could refer something to an outside agency. There's an agency like the May Institute. They did the last evaluation, I believe, of special education program in Wachusett District. They had a lot of suggestions. A lot of those suggestions were ignored by the prior administration. So maybe a comprehensive review is an output of that. But starting to get these questions answered will give the body, the public, a better understanding, and administration a better understanding of where are these programs, what are the successes of those, and are they actually effective? And that's the whole basis for this.
I'm not sure that my question was answered. My point being to this, if this is specifically about the ECC, then this motion makes sense to me. If this is not about the ECC and is about district-wide programming overall, then the question of feedback from parents, guardians, students, faculty, town officials, I have no understanding of what the district is asking these people. And so I wouldn't be able to support that.
Before we go on, two citizens actually under policy 1660 requested to speak on this agenda item, and they've hung in here all night. So before anyone moves the question, I'd like to recognize first Lindsay to speak on this agenda item.
Yeah, thank you. First, I just want to extend a very honest and gracious thank you to Dr. Riley for pausing the ECC changes. I think that was a really good decision, and I think that when you see parents come forward and they're frustrated and concerned and angry, it's because we're watching and we see a very clear divide on how we receive information, like on school choice. School choice was a data-rich presentation on something that's never been voted yay for. We need that level of data to support the decisions that are happening in our special education programs. My family is a perfect example. Use us as a case study. We have experience at 3 different elementary schools. We've had experience in 2 different sub-separate classrooms. And the difference between all of those has been, it's frightening how different they are, okay? I think I agree through the chair, if that's the way I'm supposed to do this, with Member Lavoie, that this is a start. This motion is a start for this committee to understand families like mine. Because last school committee meeting, it was apparent that there are some of the school committee members here that do not understand my family's struggles in this district, and other families like mine who struggle to get an adequate education for their disabled children. So I urge you to pass this motion, and to go along with Member Gustafson, I think that, yes, a coordinated review of all of special ed programs by a third party would be excellent. We need to know how to properly serve these students, these high-need students that really deserve thoughtful programming. So, when we look at what happened with Summit, when we look at what happened with the ECC, I urge you to vote in favor of this, get parent feedback, get the information so that everybody that's sitting at this table can actually understand what services are needed so that this cohort of students can live a life outside of this school system independently, and a life that is their own making. Because if we're not paying for their success now, we are going to pay for their failure later. Thank you.
I've had my hand up for a while, so.
Yeah, I just wanted to get to the two citizens, and then I'll get to you. So
Sure,
Laura?
sorry. Yes, I'm sorry, forgot, sorry.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Laura Ibarra, and I'm a resident of Holden, and I hope to share why I believe a review is so important. And I'm hopeful at hearing so many comments tonight. Dr. Riley, thank you for being transparent and owning some of the challenges that we have in our district. I've heard from many of you in my conversations and emails that our administration acknowledges that special education, our programs need significant improvement. Let me be clear, we are in crisis, and we've heard that continually tonight. A needs intervention designation by the state is a big deal. Do not allow this to be explained away by saying we only missed the cutoff by a few mere points, or with a new special ed director, better scores will be in place this year. Don't just listen to words, request data, and ask questions. Where is the corrective action plan? Administration received this report 3 months ago. Make sure you understand how this impacts our budget. Next year will not be any better unless major changes occur immediately. I'm surprised that I didn't see a 2023-2024 goal holding the administration accountable for impacting immediate changes in this area. We've known for a long time that this is an area that we struggle in this district. Perhaps the school committee members, when these goals were created last year, you weren't aware of the significant issues that our district faced in special ed. Now you are all deeply aware. There are several highlights listed in the superintendent's evaluation narrative. And while I love to celebrate successes whenever possible, there are many areas of concern within special education, and I'd like to highlight a few, many of which we've talked about tonight, and I won't go through some of that, but some are very important to reiterate. Para shortages are still being experienced throughout our district. The life-threatening allergy policy is proposed to be gutted and is on the agenda tonight. Feedback has been submitted stating that the protocols are not sufficient, that they don't comply with various regulations, yet no changes have been made. I encourage you to ask why. Why aren't families being heard, and why aren't they doing everything possible to keep children safe? Dr. Riley, you mentioned how important extracurriculars are, and I was hopeful to hear some of that great conversation. Inclusive social skill, did you know that inclusive social skills clubs and camps that we've had for a long time aren't running currently at schools? I know we struggle with budget cuts in the district, and you're unable to do all of the things that you want to do throughout the school day, but we have amazing educators who provide these clubs and schools after hours, and they provide a truly inclusive space for our special needs children. When families at Dawson, where my child goes, ask why they aren't being held, we're told that they have not yet been approved by central office. This has been the answer since February. For 3 months, our children have been deprived those very needed inclusive clubs to build social skills. This has been the case, as I said, this has been the case for a few months. However, I receive notice of various athletic camps almost once a week, being notified and seeing that they're able to rent space within our district schools. I think it's interesting that we're choosing to prioritize athletics over special education, inclusion, and developing social skills in light of the state of our district and what we've heard tonight. Other areas of concerns include an administration that is unwilling to hear parents' concerns. I've heard many stories of families requesting mediation to resolve disputes, only to be denied by the district as it's voluntary. How is this an effective use of our resources? Families are being misled, and this is a common theme, but unbelievably enough, it seems to have now translated into reports to you, the school committee. I'm so confused as to why at the last month's meeting, there was no mention of a summit memorandum of understanding last month, and now it suddenly exists. I've heard you ask for repeated requests for a timeline of summit conversations, yet it's still not available. And maybe it exists, but it's not available and transparent to families. The answers to the ECC questions were incomplete, some not truthful, and not relevant. Why are we using 2019 data to inform and help us inform decisions today? And I'm thrilled to hear, as are so many people, that that decision to move the programs at the ECC isn't happening. But I think it's important to look at the process and how we got to where we are today to make sure those same mistakes aren't replicated in the future. Some of the answers to those questions that were made in the motion were surprising. There was a question regarding budget considerations. There were some words that appeared to be an answer, but did you see any actual numbers there? Did you see any actual data being analyzed? How can you make an informed decision without that data? I also wanted to correct some inaccurate information contained in those responses because I really feel that it's important. Administration stated that the director went to a CPAC meeting and provided a question and answer of concerned parents. That sounds like amazing, meaningful participation. Except in reality, it didn't happen. What happened was there was a CPAC presentation on transition age youth, which is a totally different demographic than the ECC. We're talking a decade difference in age. That presentation wasn't publicized by either CPAC or the district. No one even knew that Director DeAngelis was going to attend that meeting until either the day before or the day of. There was only one ECC parent on that call. To state that parents were stakeholders that provided input is simply not true. Admin also stated in the report, in the superintendent's report, that faculty were given an opportunity to ask questions and express concern. Again, sounds great. Where's the summary? What concerns were raised, and did they use that feedback to modify the plan in any way? Judging by the number of phenomenal ECC professionals that were at the meeting last month and tonight, I think we can see there's real concern. And then I hear tonight that Dr. Riley is saying one of the things they should do is to engage the teachers and the professionals. Well, which one is true? I'm confused, and you should be too. So I challenge you to dig deeper. As a school committee, you're now experiencing what families in our district have been experiencing since July 1st. Misrepresentation of facts and intentional withholding of information. Please help families in this district resolve these issues. The well-being of our children depend on your ability to seek the truth, weed through the smoke and mirrors, and make decisions based on actual data. I hear talk about exploring a comprehensive review. We can't afford not to, frankly. We need to stop putting out fires and look at all of our systems as a whole. How long will it take to develop this plan? And how much grace and time should we give? There have been so many missteps, and I challenge you to do what you can to try to rectify this situation. I appreciate your time and for allowing me to speak so late in the night. Thank you.
Thanks. Linda, you're up.
Okay, thank you.
And Lily.
I just want to thank the citizens who spoke, and I also want to state that I think that if the district is planning to, as it says, and I'm really glad to see, that it's going to prioritize improving our special education programs, that a lot of this data would actually be very helpful. And so I would support this motion, but I would echo those who say that there needs to be a reasonable timeline for this motion, because it's going to take a lot of time. And I'm certainly open to Member Lavoie's suggestion that this could be delegated to an outside entity. That's certainly a possibility. I don't know where we would get the money, perhaps we could get a grant. That's one possibility, perhaps. But, I mean, that seems like something worth exploring to me, because it would save the district time, and it would be good to have an outside opinion, so. And I have to commend Member Lavoy for bringing this to the committee's attention, so.
Okay, further discussion. Linda?
Oh, I thought someone was before me.
Oh, Lily, I forgot Lily's, yes, sorry, it's late.
Thank you. First, I'd like to acknowledge the point made by members of the public. Specifically, the disparity in data collection, I think, is downright embarrassing for the district. By doing what this motion proposes, it would be giving due diligence, and it's a necessary step for the district, and there's no reason to oppose the ideology of this motion. That being said, I would like to echo the concerns of some members of the school committee and say that I believe the best course of action would be postponing this motion until a concrete plan of action with what to do about the data with a timeline could be added or amended to it. Transparency is a huge concern in district. It's been an issue that we've talked about many times, and by having a timeline, it would allow this sort of transparency for parents to be able to see and families. We have spent a huge amount of time in this room focusing on this issue that could have been avoided had the decision about the ECC not been rushed. I firmly believe that if we decide on this tonight, we could be rushing into another issue and have a half-baked solution that is a disservice to students, parents, and families.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Linda?
So I have a question about some of the details included in here, because the thing is, if we make this motion as is, then adhering to it becomes really sticky business. So like, I'm zeroing in on the daily schedule of the program. You know, a lot of these daily schedules are individualized. So does this mean for every individual student, an average schedule? Does it depend on what time of year? I feel like those kinds of questions, like, you know, it's part of that, creating that definition of what we're looking for. That's really important when we're going to be looking at data that we can use. I also think that after all of this discussion that we've had on these topics, that I think that everyone is, I'm guessing, everybody is in agreement that we clearly need more information, more data, more clear criteria on what special education means in this district. We also need to see the administration taking stakeholder feedback. These past several meetings and emails and discussions, I don't know what else you would call that, but stakeholder feedback. So I believe that we can trust the administration that we hired to answer these questions in a timely manner, in a more structured way that is in accordance to professional standards. And I would like to see our administration given the chance to show this to us according to more standardized ways, rather than force the hand on some things that we haven't really properly defined in this motion. So I would recommend not going forward with this today and seeing if we can get answers more collaboratively.
Okay. Jana?
Just to add to that point, I feel like as a district, we reach out often to get feedback from stakeholders, and we don't get it. And so I feel like when we want to go into these endeavors, we need to find ways to reach the community better to get that feedback. So like when we have things you can participate in looking for new principals and things like that, the amount of the community that actually participates and gives that feedback tends to be incredibly small. And I understand that mostly that is probably because everybody is very busy and there's a lot of asks. But I don't want to have a lot of time go into this where we get very minimal feedback and then we are making decisions from a very small portion of our community. So that's my one concern.
Carl and then Dana.
So I would move to amend the motion, starting the line for prior authorization, authorizing administration to make any changes to the current locations of district-wide programs, and replacing that with by July 31st, 2024.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, so
So it says here, it would say, require the committee to perform a review of special education programming and choice of schools that host district-wide programs as described in the regional agreement by July 31st, 2024.
and then
Second.
delete the
Everything
rest
else-
of it?
Everything else would be the same. It's just,
Oh, the same, or are you deleting the
okay.
rest of it?
no, everything else is the same. It's just replacing the prior to authorizing administration comment, that time qualifier.
Yep,
with
I hear you. Do I hear a second?
by July 31st, 2024.
Yep. I'm asking for a second. Does anyone
You
second
got
the
a second
motion?
over here, I thought.
No, I didn't.
Sorry.
Retracted.
I don't hear a second, but I almost heard someone wanted to do a similar amendment. Just trying to move us forward.
Yep. All right, I would move to amend the motion to strike all words after agreement and include, I don't know what date. I think July's too early.
By July 31st, 2024?
I feel like that's too early, to be perfectly honest, for a lot of
All
information.
right, so what's your amendment then for date?
But it makes sense. All right, fine. By July 31st, 2024, I give in.
So it's basically Carl's amendment except deleting everything else after July 31st, 2024. Do I hear a second to that amendment? Okay. Are you seconding or you want to talk?
I want to talk.
Okay, Dana, and then Linda, I think you had your hand up.
Does that mean-
Dana, go ahead.
Wait, point of
Oh, then
order?
Brett, point of order?
Does that mean that amendment
There was no
dies by
second.
lack of a second?
There was no
Okay.
second, so the amendment
We're good.
dies. So Dana and then Brett.
I would suggest that we amend the motion, changing the word review of special education programming to evaluation, and add what this evaluation will result in, such as this evaluation resulting in a report, for example.
Okay, so that was your amendment. You're changing review to evaluate.
Yes. And to add this evaluation then resulting in a written report.
Okay, do I hear a second to that amendment? I don't hear a second. Okay, so that fails. And we're at Brett.
I'd like to hear what the administration feels is an appropriate level of timing. Can we get feedback to the chair as to what an attainable timeframe would be for something like this data pool?
Yep. Jim, did you?
No, I don't.
Someone just asked what an appropriate time frame would be for that much data.
So I think for this to have the intended impact, I would recommend an independent evaluation of our programming. And so my concern, and similar to my concern about the early childhood program, is I hear the feedback about it not being right. These data points, would be a lot of work, and it's not the work that I'm afraid of. It's what the current days look like as is. And so, I certainly hear the feedback, and I appreciate Member Lavoie bringing this forward. And honestly, the original words he used, in that it's, when a change of programming happens, and I would think that that would be appropriate when a change of programming moving forward is being recommended, that a lot of this information is something that gets shared when that thing. But I think that's also a different issue than having an independent evaluator look at all of our district programming and looking at data points and making recommendations. I believe I read the last time that was done, I'm going to get the date wrong, and to Member LaVoie's point, there were a lot of things that had been recommended that I'm not sure had been followed through to this point in time. And so I feel like that would have great value. I think this has great value, but at this point, I would also tie it to when the district administration is proposing a change of programming and placement. I don't know if that makes sense.
Just one question. I've heard the argument that, yes, it's expensive, but if I had said that and followed that logic, then I never would have gotten a business and finance audit. Yes, it costs money, but I do feel that, an independent review, it's going to be worth its weight in gold. So here's my question to everybody. Through the chair, does anybody have a ballpark figure of what that might cost? Because when I heard what the business and finance audit cost, I was really shocked that it was not the amount that people expected. We didn't talk six figures big. So I would just be curious, like an audit, an evaluation by an independent organization. Any ideas how much that would run? Yeah. So that was just something I just wanted to. I don't want to lose that perspective, just to say. Yeah.
Well, you haven't talked yet, Laura, so go ahead, and then Sherry.
That's so unusual for me. I like your question, to be perfectly honest. And I think that information would sway my vote, perfectly honest. And so I would offer that this motion, because there's pros and cons to this motion on the table, and which is why I'm so conflicted. There's arguments on both sides. But I feel like knowing that information would be really helpful. And so I submit that perhaps it would be prudent of us to table this motion to a time definite when we can get that information and then make the best decision to move forward. I just think that is a critical piece of information that I'd like to know before I can make my vote. So I guess that's a motion that I need to prepare to make. So I would table to a time, could we get the information at the next meeting? Is that an appropriate time frame? Like a quote or?
Yeah, we could do some research in terms of what a program analysis would look like, what it would include, potentially ask for some proposals. I think we could.
So if that motion is in order, I would like to make that.
I think you want to make the motion to postpone to a time definite.
To a time definite, yes, to the next meeting, pending the information on the cost of such a process, such an audit.
Second.
And seconded by, I think, Linda Woodland and Sherry. I believe that's not debatable. It is debatable. Would anyone like to comment on motion to postpone definitely? Matt?
So I appreciate that, getting that information, but I would want some clarity in terms of where we're going to get this information from, because there's a difference between getting information and going out for a request for a proposal or a quotation. So my concern is whether or not we're going to be able to act by the next meeting, and if that's just a ballpark and that's an estimate, but I'd like some clarity around who we're going to reach out to, how we're going to do that. I did mention May Institute, who performed an evaluation in the past. I would hope to think that that would be one place that we reach out to, but perhaps 2 or 3 places within the Commonwealth that do that, and perhaps just a rough ballpark, because I would think we would have to go through a proposal process.
Okay. Any other comments on the motion to postpone to the next meeting? Seeing none, we need to vote on the motion to postpone this motion to the next meeting.
Member Valentine?
Valentine, yes.
Member Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Member Beardmore?
Beardmore, yes.
Member Poole?
Poole, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member LaVoie?
LaVoie abstain.
Vice Chair Haber?
Haber, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Kaminsky?
Kaminsky, yes.
Member Longbeliel?
Longbeliel, yes.
Member Salmon Garrett?
Salmon Garrett, yes.
Member Brennan?
Brennan, yes. Yes.
Member Silva?
Silva, yes.
Member Winters?
Winters abstain.
Member Gustafson?
Excuse me.
Member Gavarden?
Gustafson, yes.
No, and
Member Gavarden?
Gavarden, yes.
Member Lorway?
Lorway, yes.
Chair Runstrom?
Chair abstains. The motion passes. This motion is postponed to the next meeting.
Point of order.
Point of order.
Sorry, I don't know if this is appropriate, but can we dismiss our administrators that have to come to work in the morning? They're all just sitting there and they have to drive home and we're extending this as opposed to the motion to adjourn that I was going to make.
Could I make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Well, the motion to adjourn has been made and seconded. It's not debatable, and we need to move to a roll call vote.
Member Silva?
Silva, yes.
Member Gavarden?
Gavarden, yes.
Member Valentine?
Valentine, yes.
Member Poole?
Poole, yes.
Member Kaminsky?
Kaminsky, yes.
Member Brennan?
Brennan, yes.
Member Lorway?
Lorway, abstain.
Member Salmon Garrett?
Sam Garrett, yes.
Member Winters?
Winters, yes.
Member Lavoy?
Lavoy, yes.
Member Beardmore?
Yes, Beardmore, yes.
Member Gustafson? Member Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Member Longbeliel?
Longbeliel, yes.
Vice Chair Hibbert?
Sorry.
No.
Gustafson, no.
Vice Chair Hibbert?
I'm sorry.
Vice Chair Hibbert?
No.
No. Member Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member and Chair Brandstrom?
The chair abstains. Thank you all for everything that you've done this year. This is now the last meeting of the year, and we are adjourned.